Chapter 749. If they were in returning Heaven Valley's spirit land or Blue Blood Sect's main sect, Lu Yi could study this spirit array. However, he was still in the Tianji Business Alliance, and there were many cultivators queuing behind him to use the Tianji Pillar. If he stayed here for too long, he would definitely attract their displeasure. Therefore, even though he was reluctant, Lu Yi gave up on comprehending the array's mysteries. Since he had the qualifications to enter the War Merit Pavilion, it wouldn't be too late to study it in the future. He glanced at the golden spirit lot shrouded in the light screen, thought for a moment, and pressed his hand on it. The Tianji treasure vault allowed him to exchange for golden spirit lots with battle merits, but the War Merit Pavilion also had them. This made him a little puzzled. Perhaps the golden spirit lots in the two places were different? Anyway, he wouldn't lose anything by looking. The moment Lu Yi pressed his hand on the light screen, another message appeared in his mind, just like the one from the War Merit Pavilion. Exchanging for a golden spirit lot, 14,580 battle merits. Lu Yi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He was naturally very familiar with the prices of the different colors of the spirit sticks. White was 200 battle merits, followed by green, blue, purple, and gold. Each spirit lot was 3 times more expensive than the previous one. The price of a golden spirit lot should be 16,200 points. But here, it only cost 14,580 battle merits, a difference of 1,620 battle merits. This was a 10% discount? So this was the difference between the golden spirit lots in the War Merit Pavilion and the Tianji Treasure Vault. With a 10% discount, each golden spirit lot could save him more than 1,600 battle merits. He had more than 280,000 battle merits, which could only be exchanged for about 17 spirit lots in the Tianji Treasure Vault, but in the War Merit Pavilion, he could exchange for 19 spirit lots. That was 2 extra golden spirit lots. It was like picking them up for free. There was actually such a good thing in this world? Lu Yi almost couldn't help laughing out loud. Even for him, it wasn't easy to obtain 2 golden spirit lots. After all, battle merits weren't something that could be obtained at any time and place. It was different from merit points. If cultivators needed contribution points, they could kill cultivators from the enemy faction or sell items to the Heavenly Mystery Treasure Vault to earn contribution points. However, the conditions for obtaining merit points were undoubtedly much harsher. 2 golden spirit sticks might be the harvest of an entire sealed world for a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. It was just like what Pang Dehai and the others had gained in the realm of beasts. And that was with a huge risk. However, in this Battle Merit Pavilion, it was really a free meal. The War Merit Pavilion was really a good place. Lu Yi had only inspected 3 stone platforms, but every item on them was either extremely attractive to him or extremely rare and precious. This made Lu Yi more and more interested in the following investigation. In front of the 4th stone platform, Lu Yi stopped, and his eyes couldn't help but shrink, because he saw a familiar thing on this stone platform. It was a golden token. Golden body token. There was actually a golden body token here that could be exchanged. Having personally experienced the powerful effect of the golden body token, Lu Yi naturally knew the value of this token. It was a protection bestowed by heaven. In the 9 regions, before the effect of the golden body token was completely lost, no one could break it, not even a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. Having a golden body token was equivalent to having a means to protect oneself in any desperate situation. Although Lu Yi had investigated several times before, he was full of expectations for the treasures in the War Merit Pavilion, but he never expected that there would even be a golden body token here. He just didn't know the price. It should be very expensive, right? If it wasn't expensive, he could exchange for one and take it with him for self-defense. Raising his hand to press the light screen, Lu Yi's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. He immediately took his hand back and walked to the next stone platform without looking back. A golden body token, 200,000 battle merits. With his current status, he could afford it, but spending 200,000 battle merits on a golden body token was not cost-effective. He still wanted to improve his cultivation as soon as possible. How could it be so expensive? Lu Yi couldn't help but feel resentful, but on second thought, after all, This was an object that could trigger the protection of heaven. It was a protective means that even a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator couldn't do anything about. Expensive, naturally, there was a reason for it. The most urgent reason was the heartache. In the hunting ground, he was forced to use a golden body token. Until now, he still didn't know the value of this object. But after learning that this thing in the War Merit Pavilion actually cost 200,000 battle merits, his heart ached so much that his face trembled. Xiaoliang, damn it. Calming down, he checked the stone platforms one by one. Indeed, as Lu Yi had thought before, the treasures placed in the War Merit Pavilion, if placed outside, would all be good things that would attract many cultivators to fight over. There were all kinds of incredible elixirs and miraculous medicines, many spiritual flowers and herbs that were almost extinct in the 9 regions, and many strange treasures with strange effects. Everything was placed here. For example, the sacred flame sex Hua Liaoyuan once used the fighting platform on him could be exchanged here with battle merits. The price was not too expensive, just a little more than 10,000 battle merits. However, Lu Yi didn't exchange for this object. Although 10,000 battle merits were not much, it was close to the value of a golden spirit lot. The fighting platform was not very useful to him. If he really encountered some powerhouse that he couldn't resist, his biggest advantage was still his flying wings and wind speed. How could he stay and fight with the enemy to the death? Among the many stone platforms, there were some things that he could see directly. He could try to exchange for these things with battle merits. But there were even more things that he couldn't see clearly. When he put his hand on these things placed on the stone platforms, he couldn't get any information. Lu Yi vaguely guessed that he was not qualified to exchange for these treasures. But he wasn't disappointed. The many treasures that he could see already dazzled him, making it difficult for him to choose. If he could see those that he couldn't see, it would only make his heart itch even more. After a while, Lu Yi walked to a stone platform and looked at the object on it. What surprised Lu Yi was that the object was not a physical object, but a mark. A battlefield mark that glowed with red light. Beside this stone platform, there was another stone platform that also had a battlefield mark. However, that battlefield mark glowed with blue light. In the 9 prefectures, the red battlefield mark represented the Myriad Devil Ridge, the blue one represented the Grand Heaven Alliance, and the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance's battlefield mark was yellow. Suddenly, 2 battlefield marks of different colors appeared here. Lu Yi couldn't help but be puzzled. What was the use of this thing? If he exchanged for it, could he change his faction? But if that was the case, what was the point? From the beginning of a cultivator's cultivation, he would have his own circle. Within this circle, he would meet like-minded friends and make many enemies. Even if he changed his camp, his friends and enemies would not change unless he changed his appearance. With such doubts, Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed on the light screen in front of him. Immediately, many insights appeared in his heart. He realized that he had misunderstood the use of this battlefield mark. It wasn't something that could change one's faction. Exchange for the Myriad Devil Ridge battlefield mark. 18,000 battle merits. Lu Ye's heart moved and he confirmed the exchange. The battlefield mark on his body heated up slightly. That was the sound of his battle merits being deducted. At the same time, the light screen that blocked his hand suddenly disappeared. Then, the red battlefield mark swept out and crashed into his forehead. Lu Yi was caught off guard and his head was knocked back. Then, he felt a burning sensation on the back of his other hand. Lu Yi looked down and saw that the back of his hand was enveloped by a dark red light. After a while, the red battlefield mark also disappeared. 7017K. Chapter 750. After exchanging for a Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint, Lu Ye's camp affiliation did not change. He quickly came to the first stone platform and pressed his hand on it. He had wasted a lot of time in the War Merit Pavilion, and he did not want to continue looking. There were so many treasures, and he could not help but want to exchange for a few more. But what he needed the most now was to quickly improve his own cultivation. Even if he exchanged for these treasures, they could not become his own foundation. At most, they would be external forces. He naturally knew what was more important. Soon, he took out a golden spiritual stick, and his battle merits were deducted by 14,580 points. However, after he took out the golden spiritual stick, another golden spiritual stick appeared out of thin air on the stone platform. This situation was as he expected. There was naturally more than one golden spiritual stick in the War Merit Pavilion, but there was no way to exchange for too many at once. He could only do it one by one. Although it was a little troublesome, it was not a big deal. This was repeated 18 times. There was no way to exchange for more. Lu Yi checked his own battle merits. 3,232 points, there was only a fraction left. In a short time, more than 280,000 battle merits were used up. This made Lu Yi very emotional. It was true that no matter how much one had, there would never be enough to spend. He was now only in the Cloud River realm. If he really reached the true lake realm, his desire for battle merits would probably be even greater. He put away the 18 golden spiritual sticks and stepped out of the War Merit Pavilion. You can actually resist the temptation. On the open door of the War Merit Pavilion, the dragon on the left door spoke again. "Kid, you're not bad." They had guarded the War Merit Pavilion for many years and had seen prodigies of various eras come here. But even those prodigies, when they were young and weak, might not be able to resist the temptation of the War Merit Pavilion. They would often impulsively exchange for many things that seemed precious but were temporarily useless to them. And Lu Yi only exchanged for 2 things in the War Merit Pavilion. Just this mentality of being able to resist the strong temptations surpassed many of his seniors. One's own strength is the foundation. Senior, you're too kind. Lu Yi did not know the origins of these 2 dragons, but he knew that they were not to be trifled with. So when he interacted with them, he would try to be cautious as much as possible. But from the dragon's words, his choice just now should not be wrong. "Yes." The dragon on the left answered and then lost interest in talking. As it and its companions slowly turned, the door of the War Merit Pavilion closed again with a rumbling sound. Lu Yi bowed and excused himself. With a thought, his mind returned. Whether it was in the Heavenly Secret Treasury or the War Merit Pavilion, Lu Ye's mind was not completely immersed in them. He would always spare a sliver of his mind to protect himself from possible dangers. There were many cultivators in the Myriad Devil Ridge who had not given up on killing him. He had many enemies in the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance. Although there were powerful cultivators in the Business Alliance, if someone acted rashly, they would not have a good ending. However, who knew if there were people who cared more about money than life and would risk their lives to drag him down with them? If Lu Yi completely immersed himself in the Tianji treasure trove and someone took the opportunity to launch a brazen attack on him, he wouldn't have the chance to defend himself. As such, he was well aware of the reactions of the cultivators lining up behind him. Many people were impatient from waiting. He had indeed stayed in the War Merit Pavilion a little longer this time. It seemed that if there was a chance next time, he would have to do it in the Return to Heaven Valley or the Jade Blood Sect. It was not appropriate to do it in the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance. Lu Yi did not pay much attention to the reactions of the cultivators behind him and left. He quickly returned to the guest room on the 3rd floor. On the big bed, Hua Si and Yi sat upright, holding hands and talking. They looked like a gentle elder sister and a naughty little sister. No one knew what they were talking about. When Lu Yi pushed the door and entered, he happened to hear Yi's bell-like laughter. Sensing the movement, Hua Si turned to look at him. "You're back." Her expression was as usual, as if she had forgotten what had just happened. "Yes." Lu Yi responded and asked casually, "What are you talking about?" Hua Si immediately said, "Don't ask too much about women's matters." Lu Yi glanced at her disdainfully. If she didn't want to talk, then forget it. He would go back and ask. In front of him, the little girl never hid any secrets. "Are we not going back to the 9 regions?" Hua Si asked. In her opinion, in the current situation, the only way to avoid the disaster was to return to the 9 regions. Although she had been staying in the guest room and did not know the situation outside, since Lu Ye's whereabouts had been exposed, the Demon's Ridge would definitely not let it go. Therefore, without looking, Hua Si knew that there must be many enemies in the Tianji Business Alliance who were eyeing Lu Yi. Not to mention, She had used her own secret technique to poison millions of Demon's Ridge cultivators. If they wanted to detoxify, they could only find medical cultivators. The Tianji Business Alliance was the best choice. But looking at Lu Ye's posture, it was clear that he had no intention of returning to the 9 regions. Why should we go back? Lu Yi answered casually. He took off the storage bag around Hu Po's neck and put in the monster elixir he had bought from the Tianji treasure house. Hu Po was beaming with joy and was extremely happy. During the 1.5 months in the dragon soaring realm, Hu Po had been very careful with his food, for fear that he would finish it too quickly and have no place to replenish it. Now that he finally had new supplies, he could eat to his heart's content. You decide. Hua Xi did not care. This is for you. Lu Yi threw another storage pouch to Hua Xi. What is it? Hua Xi took it and opened it. She found that there were many monster elixirs inside, but they were different from the ones Lu Yi gave to Hu Po. These monster elixirs were either purple or green. It was obvious that they were poisonous things. A token of love. Lu Yi talked nonsense. He did not know if he was influenced by Hua Xi, but he was not serious in front of her. Hua Xi did not mind. She carefully put away the storage bag and said shyly, "Then you have to come early to marry me." Her eyes were curved like the moon. She was obviously in a good mood. So many poisonous monster elixirs were obviously not bought at once. Lu Yi must have deliberately collected them on a daily basis. The feeling of being remembered by someone was naturally not bad. If you want, we can do it tonight. Lu Yi naturally could not show weakness. I'm afraid you don't have the guts. Hua Xi was not to be outdone. I don't. Lu Yi sneered. He was a man who cultivated the tyrant saber technique. His saber intent was domineering and peerless. What did he not dare to do? He waved his hand. Yi. Yes. Yi, who was watching a good show at the side, quickly responded. Take Hu Po out to play. Yi reacted and picked up Hu Po, who was counting how many monster elixirs he had in his storage bag. She was about to leave when Hua Xi grabbed her arm. He could not let Yi go. Although Hua Xi knew Lu Ye's temperament and knew that he wouldn't really do anything rude to her, if she really forced him to do so, she wouldn't be able to escape a beating. Her butt was still a little burning pain now. She did not want to be slapped a second time. Ta. Lu Yi chuckled, like a general who had won a battle. He walked to the side arrogantly and sat down cross-legged. Hua Xi was so angry that her chest kept heaving up and down. The small interlude passed just like that. Ignoring Hua Xi and Yi's whispers, in the corner, Lu Yi took out many strange fires and elixir fires that he had bought from the Tianji treasure house this time and urged the talent tree to devour them. At the same time, he immersed his mind and operated the Virokana-colored glaze to return from the dragon soaring realm. He killed his way out of the encirclement under Hua Xi's guidance and fled all the way here with her. On the way to escape, he felt that his body was a little different from before. He also faintly perceived something, but at that time he did not have the time to verify it. Until now. With the activation of the cultivation method, the long river of spirit power in his body flowed faster and faster, rumbling like the movement of a surging river came out. Immediately after, Lu Yi had an extremely strange yet familiar feeling. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in all directions seemed to be attracted by something and rushed into his body, injecting into the long river of spirit power. With the operation of the cultivation method, it turned into his own power. The reason why it was strange was because Lu Yi had never cultivated like this. The cultivation methods of cultivators were mainly divided into several types. Breathing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, swallowing elixirs, refining essence into qi. No matter which cultivator, if they wanted to improve their own cultivation, it was inevitable that they had to use these 3 methods as the main means. For a long time, Lu Ye's main cultivation method was swallowing elixirs and refining essence into qi. It was not that he did not want to breathe in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but he could not do it. He did not know if it was because his cultivation aptitude was really low, but his body was not enough for him to breathe in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was as if there was a layer of isolation on the surface of his body, blocking the influx of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. So he could only use a shortcut. He built a small spiritual funnel on the surface of his body and let the tip of the small funnel pierce the barrier that isolated his body from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In this way, under the effect of the small spiritual funnel, whether it was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth or the pure energy drawn by using the spirit lot, they could be directly injected into his spiritual cavities, the long river of spirit power. But at this moment he was indeed breathing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Since he started cultivating, this was the first time he did not use the small spiritual funnel to achieve this. And the efficiency seemed to be not low. He could feel that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around him was extremely intimate with him. As he breathed in and out, it rushed into his body and became his capital to become stronger. There was no reason for his body to suddenly have such a change. The origin of heaven and earth of the soaring dragon realm. Lu Yi understood that the reason for such a change was definitely because of the origin of heaven and earth of the soaring dragon realm. He had long felt that the benefits that the soaring dragon realm's final source of the heavens and earth brought to him were not limited to bringing him back from the dead, nor were they limited to increasing his vitality. There were many other benefits that he had yet to discover. At this moment he finally confirmed one thing. The origin of the soaring dragon realm changed his cultivation aptitude. Chapter 751. In the cultivation world of the 9 provinces, cultivators' aptitudes were divided into 64 grades. The higher the number, the better the aptitude. This meant that the higher a cultivator's affinity with the heaven and earth spirit chi, the more efficient they would be at absorbing the heaven and earth spirit chi. After all, for most cultivators, absorbing the heaven and earth spirit chi was the main method of cultivation without any hidden dangers. Consuming spirit pills was only a supplement. Hence, aptitude for cultivation was especially important. Lu Ye's nickname, One Leaf, originated from the results of his aptitude test in Evil Moon Valley. A one-leaf aptitude could be said to be only slightly better than ordinary people who could not cultivate at all. All this while, Lu Yi had been brooding over his nickname. What made him feel extremely helpless was that even the heavenly secrets seemed to have recognized him as such. In the battlefield mark, his name was Lu Yi. However, he did not know when it had become Lu Yi. The Spirit Stream leaderboard in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the hunting leaderboard in the hunting ground both showed Lu Yi. Now, Lu Yi had finally broken free of his one-leaf aptitude. Search. Although he was not sure about his current aptitude, it was impossible for him to only have one leaf. With his efficiency in absorbing the heaven and earth spirit chi, he would at least have 40 leaves. It was even possible for him to have 50 leaves. The change in his aptitude would undoubtedly speed up his cultivation in the future. Lu Yi was in a good mood. He could not help but laugh. Hua Si, who was talking to Yi, could not help but glance at him. She muttered, "You're like an idiot." After saying that, she ignored him and continued talking to Yi. In truth, Lu Yi had already vaguely sensed the change in his aptitude when he was in the soaring dragon realm. However, the soaring dragon realm had lost too much of its foundation, and the heaven and earth spirit chi was not dense. Hence, he could not feel it clearly. When he returned to the cloudy river battlefield, the feeling became even more obvious. At this moment, it was finally confirmed. Lu Yi did not expect the world's origin to be able to change a person's cultivation aptitude. However, when he thought about it, it was the world's origin after all. If it could even bring the dead back to life, what was a change in one's cultivation aptitude? Hence, he felt relieved. A moment later, Lu Yi stopped circulating his cultivation method. He focused his mind and looked at the innate talent tree. All the rare flames and alchemic flames he bought from the Tianji treasure vault had been devoured clean. He wondered if there were any gains this time. Every time the talent tree engulfed the flames, he would be filled with anticipation when he checked the talent tree. It was because ever since he started cultivating, the many spirit runes on the talent tree had brought him great help. Activating all kinds of spirit inscriptions in battle could increase his combat power and self-defense ability. The reason why he could have such high attainments in Array Dao was also because of the foundation laid by the Dao of Spirit Tattoos. Having reached this level of cultivation, Lu Yi understood one thing. The way of spiritual tattoos involved all aspects of cultivation. The more profound one's attainments in the way of spiritual tattoos were, the easier it would be for him to cultivate other things. Regardless of whether it was the art of sorcery, the art of formation, or even the art of refining, they could all be said to be the extension and branch of the spiritual tattoo. In a word, the way of spiritual tattoos could be regarded as the foundation of all unorthodox methods. Lu Yi was stunned when he saw this. At this moment, more than 20 leaves on the talent tree were glowing red. Clearly, this was a change caused by the devouring flames. However, the leaves did not burn. Only when the leaves were completely burned could Lu Yi check the information contained within them. The fact that the leaves were not completely burned meant that the flames devoured by the talent tree were not enough to ignite the leaves. Furthermore, the fact that more than 20 leaves had the same reaction meant that they were carrying the same spirit rune. Lu Yi was overjoyed. This kind of spiritual inscription that required more than 20 leaves to carry was definitely extremely complicated. Fire Phoenix, Sky Restriction, Flying Wings, and Charm were all spiritual inscriptions of this type. Although the consumption of spiritual energy to execute was much greater than ordinary spiritual inscriptions, the effects were also greater. What kind of spirit rune was this? Lu Yi observed carefully. However, the leaves were not completely ignited and the runes were blurry. No matter how Lu Yi checked, he could not see anything. This made him look forward to it even more. However, the awkward thing was that he did not have too many flames on hand for the talent tree to devour. Or, should he devour the earth core fire that he had in reserve? He had always kept about 20 portions of earth core fire on hand, mainly in case the talent tree ran out of fuel one day and he needed the power of the talent tree to burn the external forces that invaded his body. For example, if he was poisoned at a critical moment like this, if the talent tree ran out of fuel and was not replenished in time, it would be dangerous. He would not use these 20 portions of earth core fire under normal circumstances. As soon as the thought arose, he rejected it. It was not that he was reluctant to use it, but since it was an emergency, it was better not to use it easily. Moreover, according to his observation, even if he devoured these 20 portions of earth core fire, it should not be enough to completely ignite the leaves. There were still many strange flames for sale in the Tianji treasure trove, but all of them were expensive, easily tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of merit points per portion. For some cultivators, they might need these strange flames to cultivate some kind of secret art. However, Lu Yi was only using them for the talent tree to devour. It was not worth it to pay such a high price. Let's wait a little longer. In the future, there would always be a chance to buy a rare flame at a good price. There were still many things that he needed to do now. There were still many things to do, and he was not in a hurry to get this spirit rune with unknown effects. After making up his mind, Lu Yi cut off the urgency in his heart and looked up to Kali Yi. Come on, let's cultivate. Hua Xi, come too. Hua Xi blinked her big, innocent eyes. Her words would not stop until she was shocked to death. Double shame? Otherwise, why would we cultivate together? What nonsense are you spouting in front of a child? Lu Yi glared at her and raised his hand to take out the golden spirit stick that he had exchanged for in the War Merit Pavilion. Hua Xi's eyes lit up when she saw it. She walked over and bent down to pick up the spirit stick. She turned it over and over to examine it. So this is a spirit stick? She had heard before that there was something special called a spirit stick in the Cloud River battlefield. This thing could help cultivators quickly increase their cultivation base, and there was also a mechanism like a spirit stick bestowed by the heavens. Chapter 752, Unknown Spirit Rune. However, if she joined, she would have to take away half of Lu Ye's time. This was undoubtedly not worth it, especially the spirit chi of heaven and earth. To her, it was not that important. Her cultivation relied on all kinds of poisons. The many poison pills that Lu Yi had given her were enough for her to cultivate for a long time. Moreover, she had accumulated a large number of myriad poison pills in the spirit stream battlefield. She also needed to refine them and absorb them into her body to increase her cultivation base. Lu Yi was about to continue persuading her when he felt an inexplicable sense of alarm. He suddenly remembered what the flood dragon guarding the War Merit Pavilion had said to him. Everything in the War Merit Pavilion could only be used by himself, and he could not reveal the slightest bit of information to anyone. He had only cared about enjoying Yi's admiring gaze. He wanted to quickly increase Hua Xi's cultivation base and had forgotten about this. It seemed that these golden spirit sticks could only be used by him. Thinking of this, Lu Yi no longer tried to persuade her. He raised his hand and crushed a golden spirit stick. The golden dust swirled and turned into a vortex. Immediately after, an extremely large and rich spirit chi of heaven and earth surged out from the vortex, enveloping Lu Yi, Yi, and Hu Pei. The spirit chi gathered and did not dissipate. It only surrounded the three figures and did not leak out at all. Hua Xi stood at the side and watched, clicking her tongue in wonder. Since it was the first time she had seen a golden spirit stick, it was naturally the first time she had seen someone cultivate with the help of a spirit stick. The purity and richness of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was simply breathtaking. Those few square meters of spiritual chi had already turned into mist. It could be directly cultivated by the earth without any refinement. The long river of spirit chi absorbed and strengthened the power of the earth cultivator. Volume. She understood in her heart. No wonder people said that the Cloud River realm was a magical realm. In this realm, because the foundation that cultivators laid in the spirit stream realm was different, there would often be some cases of cultivators of a higher realm killing enemies. Moreover, because of the spirit sticks, as long as they were lucky enough, it was much easier for Cloud River realm cultivators to increase their cultivation base compared to spirit stream realm cultivators. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. Chapter 752. The spirit stream realm was the first stage of cultivation, and it was also the stage where one's foundation was laid, so it was best not to be too hasty. This was also the reason why there were no spirit lots on the spirit stream battlefield. But at the Cloud River realm, cultivators needed to improve their strength as quickly as possible, and spirit lots were born. Once a cultivator reached the Cloud River realm, they would inevitably come into contact with spirit lots. Seeing that Lu Yi and Yi were already immersed in cultivation, Hua Xi walked to the other side of the room and sat down cross-legged. When she had first met Lu Yi, her cultivation had been slightly higher than Lu Ye's, but now, the situation had been completely reversed. She was now at the first order Cloud River realm, while Lu Yi was at the 6th layer. Furthermore, he had 18 golden spirit lots, so his cultivation would increase greatly. He also needed to improve his cultivation. Hua Xi thought to herself. Otherwise, the gap between them would only grow bigger and bigger, and one day, she might not even be able to see Lu Ye's back clearly. However, she was still very confident in her ability to increase her cultivation. For ordinary cultivators, even with the help of spirit lots, they still had to do it step by step to increase their cultivation. But she had a different cultivation method. Raising her hand, a 10,000 poison pill appeared in her palm. She stuffed it into her mouth and swallowed it, silently refining it. She felt the surging power explode in her body, strengthening her foundation. The 10,000 poison pill was the condensation of her cultivation. Because she had always been in the spirit stream battlefield, she was suppressed by the spirit stream battlefield's rules, so her cultivation could only reach the 9th layer at most. If she wanted to improve, she could only reach the Cloud River realm and leave the spirit stream battlefield. But how could she bear to leave such a precious place like the 10,000 poison forest? So, every time her cultivation reached the 9th layer, she would cut off her cultivation and condense it into a 10,000 poison pill. After storing the 10,000 poisons pill, his cultivation would drop to Heaven Realm 8, and he would have to cultivate again. This cycle repeated over and over again. This caused Hua Xi to suffer for a long time on the Spirit Stream battlefield. This generation of cultivators on the Spirit Stream battlefield was really bitter. In the past 10 years, there were Feng Yuchan, Yan Xing, and Li Baxian, these 3 malignant tumors, who firmly occupied the top 10 positions of the Spirit Stream list. After sending off the 3 of them with great difficulty, before the Spirit Stream realm cultivators could even celebrate, Lu Ye of the Jade Blood sect appeared out of nowhere and overtook them. During the few months that he ruled over the Spirit Stream battlefield, even the first-grade sects in the core region were suppressed to the point that they could not raise their heads. The cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge were on tenterhooks when they went out. Fortunately, in just a few short months, Lu Yi had advanced to the Cloud River realm and left the Spirit Stream battlefield. They had thought that the haze that had enveloped the Spirit Stream battlefield had finally dissipated, and light had arrived. Who knew that Hua Si of the Jade Blood sect would suddenly appear? This unknown woman, who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, was actually a dark cloud that was even darker than Lu Yi's. Because of her, the Spirit Stream battlefield hadn't seen any sunlight for a very long time. No one could accept the fact that she was listed as a medical cultivator on the Spirit Stream list. A medical practitioner. It wasn't that there weren't any medical cultivators on the Spirit Stream list. However, there weren't many of them. Furthermore, their rankings were all quite low, with most of them being below the 50s. A medical cultivator who could make it into the top 50 was already impressive enough, let alone the first place of the Spirit Stream ranking. Furthermore, she had occupied the top spot for nearly a year, which was even longer than Lu Ye had occupied the Spirit Stream list. The cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance weren't so bad. After all, the Jade Blood sect was part of their faction. Hua Si occupying the first place could be considered to have brought honor to the Grand Heaven Alliance. However, the Earth cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge were having a hard time. Every time they checked the Spirit Stream list, they would see the names and factions at the top. It was like an invisible hand was slapping them in the face. In the past year, it was not that there were no experts from the Myriad Demons Ridge who had challenged Hua Si's position at the top of the list. However, after a battle, they had been poisoned without even seeing Hua Si's figure and had no choice but to admit defeat. In the 3 months after Lu Yi had left the Spirit Stream battlefield, Hua Si had encountered quite a few challenges from the Myriad Demons Ridge. However, as her fame grew, no one dared to provoke her. This gave her plenty of time to cultivate in the Forest of 10,000 Poisons. By the time she left the Forest of 10,000 Poisons, the forbidden area that had existed for countless years in the Spirit Stream battlefield had become an ordinary forest. All the essence in the Forest of 10,000 Poisons had turned into the myriad poisons pills in Hua Si's hands. As a result, she had nearly 100 myriad poisons pills in her storage. Each myriad poisons pill was the condensed essence of the Heavenly 8 to Heavenly 9 realms. In Lu Ye's hands, the myriad poisons pills could only be used to kill enemies. However, in Hua Si's hands, they were no less effective than the golden spirit lots. In fact, they were even more effective. As long as she refined the myriad poisons again, Hua Si was confident that even if she couldn't catch up to Lu Ye's cultivation, she wouldn't fall too far behind. The room was silent. 2 people, 1 spirit and 1 tiger, were immersed in their cultivation, unable to extricate themselves. Lu Yi didn't use up all 18 golden spirit lots in one go. A golden spirit lot could last for a little more than a day, which was about 14 to 14 hours. If he wanted to use up all 18 golden spirit lots, even if he didn't stop for a moment, it would take 20 days. Although he was eager to increase his cultivation, he also knew that it wasn't necessarily a good thing to increase his cultivation too quickly and fiercely. His body needed to adapt to the increase in strength. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good if he couldn't control the power he obtained after his cultivation level increased. An appropriate amount of precipitation would make the increase in cultivation more stable. Therefore, every time he used up 3 golden spirit lots, he would rest for 2 days and continue to cultivate with the help of the spirit lots. He didn't stay idle when he was resting. There were many things he needed to do. Comprehending the secret manual of the Tyrant Saber technique, digesting the 100 Formation Pagoda's gift, activating the Breath Fruit Core to enter the Mirage to train and adapt to the changes in his strength. During this period he sensed another benefit brought to him by the Dragon Soaring Realm's world origin. His comprehension seemed to be much higher than before. Because after comprehending the secret manual of the Tyrant Saber technique again, he could see many things that he couldn't see in the past and comprehend things that he hadn't comprehended in the past. The secret manual of the Tyrant Saber technique wasn't just those 3 blades. This was a complete set of saber technique inheritance. Everything was contained in those 3 earth-shattering blades. Lu Yi could only observe the first blade now, but he could already learn many useful things from it. And these comprehensions could all improve his battle skills and killing methods. The person who left behind this set of inheritance must be a powerful cultivator. The Dragon Emperor wasn't something from the dragon soaring realm, it was a foreign object. Lu Yi suspected that the tyrant saber technique was also a foreign object. Just like that, the days passed without any surprises. A month passed in a flash. When the power of the last golden spirit lot was exhausted, the golden vortex in front of him disappeared, and the thick fog that shrouded his body also disappeared. Lu Yi slowly opened his eyes and exhaled softly. He had to admit that after his cultivation aptitude improved, the efficiency of his cultivation had indeed increased significantly. This undoubtedly made the value of the golden spirit lot greater to him. The long river of spirit energy in his body surged, and the sound of the river water hummed. As Lu Yi exhaled, it slowly calmed down. The surging spirit energy fluctuations around his body also slowly converged. And the spirit energy fluctuations showed that he was an 8th order cloud river realm cultivator. After a month of hard work, he broke through from the 6th order cloud river realm to the 8th order in one fell swoop, directly crossing a realm. Such speed was simply amazing. Moreover, Lu Yi hadn't just entered the 8th order. He had already broken through to the 8th order 3 days ago. These 3 days of cultivation had allowed him to accumulate a lot of spirit energy in the 8th order. Yi and Hu Po's spirit energy and monster chi fluctuations were not inferior to his. In other words, in terms of cultivation alone, Yi and Hu Po were not left behind by him. All of this was due to the mysterious power of the golden spirit lot. Part of the reason for its effectiveness was the special cultivation method of the spirit and tiger. Lu Ye's cultivation efficiency was naturally much higher than Yi and Hu Po's, but the spirit and tiger's cultivation had always been complementary. The two combined into one, which was why they could be on par with Lu Yi. The 3 of them had grown tremendously, but compared to Hua Xi's growth, it seemed to be nothing. Lu Yi raised his eyes and looked at Hua Xi, who was still cultivating. At this moment, this woman was surrounded by a faint green fog. At a glance, it was obvious that it was highly toxic. However, under her control, it did not spread at all. Otherwise, this room would not be able to accommodate anyone. A month ago, Hua Xi was in the 1st order Cloud River realm, but now her spirit energy fluctuations had reached the 6th order Cloud River realm. In a month, she had crossed 5 minor realms. Throughout the ages, this was probably the only example. Even if other cultivators continuously used the golden spirit lot for a month, their cultivation speed would not be able to match Hua Xi's progress. All of this was naturally due to her myriad poison pill. This was the condensation of 1 minor realm cultivation, so it was naturally very easy for her to refine it into her body. Therefore, although Hua Xi had stayed in the spirit stream battlefield for nearly a year, the impact on her cultivation was only temporary. She had just used a method that others could not understand to store her cultivation. When she arrived at the Cloud River battlefield, she had made terrifying progress. Retracting his gaze, Lu Yi stood up. Is he leaving? Yi saw through his thoughts. There are some things that should be settled. Yi naturally knew what he was talking about. Ever since he had formed a grudge with those people in the hunting ground, the other party had been relentless and wanted to kill Lu Yi. After such a long time, Lu Yi was completely defeated, but he was able to turn defeat into victory with the help of the spirit array. But this kind of entanglement would eventually come to an end. No one wanted to be constantly targeted. Read the latest chapter of The Great Sage. CC in the Spirit Stream battlefield, the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators targeted Lu Yi in all kinds of ways, but when Lu Yi had enough strength, he killed them until rivers of blood flowed. The core region's large sects were suppressed to the point that they could not raise their heads. He had a very strong premonition. History seemed to be repeating itself. The current Lu Yi, just like in the Spirit Stream battlefield, already had the capital to turn the tables. Chapter 753. Diagonally opposite the Tianji Business Alliance, in a restaurant. Two people sat opposite each other at a table by the window on the second floor. It was Xia Liang and Tan Xing. At another table not far away, there were two people sitting. Chu Yun and Zhou Pei from the Sacred Flame sect. The two of them from the Sacred Flame sect sat motionlessly with their eyes closed. One of them stared at the Tianji Business Alliance without blinking. At the entrance of the Business Alliance. They had been in this state for a full month. In other words, they had been waiting here ever since Lu Yi hid in the Tianji Business Alliance. It wasn't just the four of them, but also the entire restaurant. They searched. Even in the nearby buildings, there were tens of thousands of people. The hidden figures of the Demon Ridge cultivators. Unlike Chu Yun and Zhou Pei, at this moment, both Xia Liang and Tan Xing were full of emotions. Sorrow. It had been delayed for too long. Since the first time they met Lu Yi in the hunting ground, the two of them had thoughts of killing him. Until today, they had already passed. They had been gone for almost 10 months, but they still didn't think he could succeed. According to the normal speed of cultivation, the two of them should have already advanced to the true lake realm, but, at this moment, they were still wasting their time here. Looking around, how familiar was this scene? Last time, Lu Yi poisoned 20 million people in the mine. After the Demon Ridge cultivators, they hid in a Tianji Business Alliance. In the alliance, they were the ones who stayed outside to keep an eye on them. At the top, the same thing happened again. This was simply unimaginable. Endless pent-up anger and grievance turned into a belly full of resentment, grief and indignation. On the table, there were a few dishes. Xia Liang and Tan Xing drank together, drowning their sorrows. Putting down the wine cup, Tan Xing looked in the direction of the Tianji Business Alliance. He glanced at it and sighed. Brother Xia, in another 10 days, heaven, whether Lu Yi appears or not, I have to leave. It's open. Xia Liang paused in his action of picking up food and looked at him. Brother Tan, do you want to give up just like that? Tan Xing shook his head. Of course not, but I have to give up. The Cloud River battle is about to begin. I need to calm down. I need to rest for a few days. For such a grand event, the cultivators of the 9 regions, perhaps we can only encounter it once in our lives. When it's time, we should go all out. Then he looked at Xia Liang and persuaded, Brother Xia, you should learn to let go and not be too stubborn. Xia Liang remained silent. In fact, Tan Xing and Lu Yi did not have much blood. It was easy to let go of a grudge, but he wasn't that simple. The bed was empty. If he didn't kill Lu Yi, how could he kill Li Baxian? How to take revenge for Yan Xing? After such a long time together, Tan Xing also knew Xia Liang. What was his obsession? Seeing that he was unable to persuade him, he gave up. What did he say? Last time. After a while, Xia Liang spoke. What? Tan Xing was puzzled. Xia Liang said, I have a feeling that this is the only thing we can do. There's only one chance left. Brother Xia, you mean, that bastard's strength is growing too fast. Even if the Cloud River tier was a realm where one's cultivation progress was relatively faster, to begin with, in the same realm, Lu Ye's growth rate was terrifying enough. It was terrifying. If the growth was purely in terms of cultivation, then, forget it. The 6th order Cloud River realm was far from the 9th order. There was still a big gap between their realms. However, the strength that Lu Yi displayed was truly shocking. A 6th order could kill an 8th order as easily as chopping melons and vegetables. If he advanced to the 7th order, wouldn't he be able to kill the 9th order? The ability of a 3rd order? He disappeared for more than a month before. He must have used that broken transmission array to go to some secret realm. I'm afraid he had some gains in his realm. He must have been trying to improve his cultivation. Xia Liang's expression was solemn. He didn't even realize that at this moment, he was already wary of Lu Yi. He had a lot of fear. Now, he is most likely at the 7th order. Tan Xing's hand movements paused. He pondered for a moment and found that what Xia Liang said was most likely true. So, Brother Tan. Xia Liang looked at Tan Xing seriously. This is our only chance. If this is the only chance. If we don't succeed this time, I'm afraid there won't be a next time. The next time they met, it should be them hiding in Landing Yi. Moreover, it shouldn't be long before he shows up. Xia Liang's tone was firm. If other Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators encountered such a thing, they would naturally return to the 9 states with the help of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance's Heavenly Secret Pillar. Their sect would be the safest. But that Louis didn't exist. He didn't do it when he was in Returning Heaven Valley. He didn't do it this time either. Naturally, he couldn't do it this time. He couldn't do it this way. If he really improved his strength in secret, when he came out of seclusion, he would definitely appear again and stir up a storm. And this was also what Xiao Yang had been waiting for. This was his last chance. How sure are you, Brother Xia? Tan Xing asked. If that was the case, this was his only chance. He really couldn't miss it. 8. Xiao Yang just spat out a word. His eyes narrowed as he stared sharply at the Heavenly Secret Chamber of Commerce. At the entrance of the Alliance, there was a mark that was enough for him to carve into his bones. Heart's figure slowly walked out. As if sensing his gaze, she raised her head and looked over. She came over. Their eyes met. Lu Ye's eyes were as calm as water. Xia Liang's eyes were burning like torches. 100%. Xia Liang drank the wine in his cup, put down the wine cup heavily, and stood up. At the same time, Chu Yun and Zhou Pei, who were beside him, also stood up. Not only that, the entire restaurant moved. The restaurant also became noisy at this moment, and then it became filled with noise. It spread to several nearby buildings. There are so many people. In front of the Heavenly Secret Chamber of Commerce, Lu Yi muttered softly. He took out his spirit boat and stepped on it. He rose into the sky and flew straight into the distance. As soon as he left, a large number of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators appeared behind him. Warriors followed him. In the guest room on the 3rd floor of the Heavenly Secret Chamber of Commerce, they looked through the window. This spectacular scene made Hua Ci puzzled. But why is it so lively wherever he goes? She turned her head and glanced at it. Don't worry. Are you? He smiled. Lu Yi is very confident. There's nothing to worry about. She had always been by Lu Ye's side, following him on his journey to the south. After experiencing all kinds of life and death crises in the north, he had long been used to this kind of ups and downs. She would be exhausted to death if she was constantly on edge. This time, Lu Yi didn't even bring Amber with him. Obviously, he was full of confidence. There was no need for her to worry about anything. At this moment, in the sky, the scorching sun was overhead, and a stream of light was in front. A large number of streams of light were chasing closely behind. The scene was hot. It was noisy. The ones at the front were naturally Xia Liang and Tan Xing. There were some powerful 9th and 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivators. As he chased, Tan Xing sensed Lu Yi's spirit energy fluctuations, which could be used to determine the level of his current cultivation. Xia Liang's previous words were very reasonable, so Tan Xing also felt that Lu Ye's cultivation should have improved. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to suddenly appear like this. He turned around. He secretly sensed, but he couldn't figure it out. Because Lu Yi seemed to be deliberately restraining his qi. His aura and spirit energy fluctuations were most likely due to a concealment, something like an aura talisman. Brother Xia, can you tell what his cultivation is now? Tan Xing asked as they chased. He's definitely 7th order. Xia Liang replied. Although Lu Yi was most likely using an aura concealment talisman, he wanted to hide his true strength, but there was no way to completely conceal it when flying on an artifact like this. This caused his aura and spirit energy fluctuations to fluctuate, sometimes revealing the appearance of a 5th or 6th order cultivator. At other times, it seemed like a 7th order cultivator. Of course, it was also because of the distance. Lu Yi didn't fly too fast, and they didn't dare to chase after him. It was too tight, for fear that Lu Yi would rush back to the heavenly sky. Mecha Commerce Alliance. The two sides maintained a tacit understanding. Their speed. I think so too. Tan Xing nodded. He was shocked. He was really 7th order. How long had it been? Why did Lu Yi have so many opportunities and opportunities? What about encounters? Sure enough, as Xiao Yang said before, this was already their last chance. If they couldn't get rid of the root this time, the next time they met, it was really hard to say who would kill who. While they were communicating, Chu Yun and Zhou Yu, who were not far away, Pei had almost come to the same conclusion. Under normal circumstances, when a cultivator urged their spirit energy, their cultivation couldn't be concealed, because there would be a spirit. Spirit energy fluctuations fluctuated. An experienced cultivator could easily judge the strength of the spirit energy fluctuations. The level of a cultivator's strength. Lu Ye's spirit energy fluctuations and even his aura fluctuated. He didn't even let the myriad demon-ridge cultivators behind him notice. His true cultivation relied on nothing more than one thing: the aura-concealing spirit tattoo. In order to be able to activate the aura-concealing spirit tattoo while flying on an artifact, Lu Yi also put in a lot of effort to conceal it. This caused his spirit energy fluctuations to fluctuate. He had just advanced to the 7th Order Cloud River realm and hadn't had time to stabilize his realm. Fortunately, the distance between them wasn't too close, otherwise, it would really look bad. It would easily be exposed. The people chasing from Myriad Demon Ridge didn't chase too closely. Lu Yi naturally knew what they were worried about. They were afraid that he would hide back in the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance when the situation turned bad. Coincidentally, Lu Yi had the same plan. Now, things were getting interesting. As time passed, the distance between them and the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance was getting closer and closer. Far away. Until a certain moment, Xia Liang couldn't hold back his impatience. He shouted anxiously, "It's about time." As soon as he finished speaking, his speed suddenly increased, and in an instant, he shot out like an arrow. But in the next moment he suddenly paused. He stood in midair with a dignified expression. Behind him, a large group of myriad demon ridge cultivators chased over. The warriors also stopped in their tracks. There was no other reason. Lu Yi suddenly fell down. Just stood there and turned around and said, "Hey." He looked at them quietly. What was he going to do? Every myriad demon ridge cultivator had such doubts in their hearts. They asked. There was no way not to be surprised. They were clearly the ones being chased. Feng, however, suddenly stopped running away. This was true. It was too strange. Is there an ambush? Someone suddenly asked in horror. This immediately caused many myriad demon ridge cultivators to panic. It was chaotic. Although this person was asking a question, the people next to him could hear it. But it sounded like an affirmative tone. For a moment, the scene was chaotic. The warriors looked around, but where could they see an ambush? There were no traces here. There was nothing here to hide. Even more so, it was impossible for anything to hide anyone. On the ground below, Lu Yi raised his head and looked up, revealing a look of disappointment. A motley crew. Chapter 754. Although his tone was light, everyone present was a Cloud River tier cultivator with outstanding hearing and eyesight. How could they not hear him clearly? They were all furious. However, even though they were angry, they also knew that Lu Yi was not wrong. After all, they were not from the same sect, and their relationship was not that close. Although they had attacked Lu Yi together, each of them had their own thoughts and did not have too many plans or unified commands. That was why Lu Yi had been able to escape so many times. It was also because of this that he had managed to escape when being hunted down. Therefore, even though they felt
Among the many spells,
no one refuted
the two fire spells
what
were
they
the
could be
most
sure of
eye-catching.
now was that there
This
was
was the
no
technique
ambush
that
here.
Chu Yun and
As
Zhou
for the
Pei had
formation
used,
that Lu Yi
although the
relied on the
Sacred
most,
Flame sect
he
was
should not have
only a
had time to
fourth-grade
set it up.
sect.
They had
Then
once
what
been
was
a
the
first
reason
grade
why
sect.
the other party was
Naturally,
so calm
the
and
disciples
composed?
they taught would
The
not be
crowd
weak,
could not help but feel a
especially
little
since
surprised.
both of them were in the
The
9th
scene
Order
suddenly
Cloud
became
River
a
realm.
little strange.
The power of
There
their
were
attacks
clearly
was
many
even more
myriad demon ridge
extraordinary.
cultivators chasing after Lu Yi,
A cracking
but
sound
at this
rang
moment,
out. They were
it was
all
the
alone.
sound of Lu
At
Ye's
this moment,
defensive
the
spirit
myriad
demon
demon
shattering,
ridge side, which
The
had the advantage in
blood
numbers,
spurted out,
was hesitant,
following Lu
as if
Ye's
they had
path,
the upper hand,
leaving behind a
Is
trail
Lu
of
Yi
scarlet.
not going to make a move?
At the same
Lu Yi
time,
asked softly.
the two powerful
Search.
fire dragons
No
had
one
already
answered.
appeared.
Only the
Under the
wind
control
whistled
of
past,
Yun and
the
Zhou Pei,
atmosphere was
they
austere.
attacked E from the
Lu
left
Yi
and
took a
right.
deep breath.
He came at them
his
from
chest
both
rising
sides.
and falling
The
at a
fire
rate
dragons
visible to the
roared,
naked eye.
shaking their heads
He
and
squatted
wagging
down
their tails.
slightly, staggered
Lu
his
Ye's
feet,
figure was
and
instantly
raised his
engulfed
hand
in
and pressed the
flames.
hilt of the mountain
Many
plate
myriad
saber at his
demon ridge
waist.
cultivators were
His eyes
shocked
were
when they
lowered,
saw this scene,
and the black hair
they
in front
almost
of his
couldn't
forehead
help but
cast
cheer.
a shadow,
"We got
blocking
him."
the intimidating
Although they
light
didn't know
in his
why
eyes.
Lu Yi was so
If you don't
arrogant
make a
that he could
move,
take the
then
initiative
I'll
to
do
attack
it.
so many
The
of them
moment
alone,
the last word
it was
was
still
spoken,
an unwise
there was a
move.
loud explosion.
The only thing
and the
that made
ground
them feel
cracked like a
regretful
broken
was that
mirror.
this time,
Footprints.
they had all
Two
attacked
floating
together.
footprints were
Even
left
if they
on the
killed
ground.
Lu Yi,
With the help
the
of the
reward
recoil,
would be divided
Lu Yi
equally
soared
among
into the
all of
sky
them.
like an arrow
Good.
released from a bow,
Be careful,
pouncing
he's not
straight
dead.
toward the numerous enemies.
Suddenly, a cry
In that
of alarm
instant,
came from
the
the crowd.
aura that wrapped
No
around
one
him was
knew
like
who
an
had issued
ancient
the warning.
ferocious beast
As
that had
soon as the
broken
words
out of
were
its
spoken,
cage,
a
like a
familiar
flood
dragon that had come out of the
flames.
sea in a rage.
As far as the eye could
shocking
see,
wildness
Lu Ye's
and
clothes were
ruthlessness
in
caused
tatters
many
and looked
myriad
terrible,
demon ridge
but there was no
cultivators to
trace of
panic.
being burned
The
by a
myriad
fire
demon
attribute
ridge
magic
cultivators
technique.
who had been chasing
The two
after
most
Lu Yi
powerful
had been
fire
wondering
dragons
what the hell he
didn't
was
seem to have
doing.
caused any
No one
damage
had
to him.
expected him to
Both
actually
Chu Yun
pounce on
and
them
Zhou
like
Pei
this.
were shocked.
Although there were
No
not
one
many
knew better
people
than them
chasing
how
after him
powerful
this
their
time,
techniques were.
there were still
Even if they
200
were
of
all
them.
ninth order
Taking the
cultivators,
initiative
it
to
would be
attack.
impossible for them
One
to take
man
their
against
joint attack
200.
unscathed.
What's more,
But this Lu
what
Ye
kind of
had
audacity
actually done
was
it.
this?
Not to
He
mention,
really did not
Lu
put them in
Ye's
his eyes.
defensive means had been
Everyone was
broken and his
enraged
protective
and
spirit
instinctively
chi had been
attacked.
pierced through.
In an instant,
In other
streams
words,
of
he had
imperial
relied on his
equipment and
defenseless
spell
body
techniques
to block their
blasted
attacks
forward.
unscathed.
Colorful lights intertwined
how is
and
this
dazzled
possible?
everyone's eyes. The explosion of the two fire dragons obscured the vision and perception of many myriad demon ridge cultivators. They reacted to the situation in front of them. They had made an error in judgment. When Lu Ye's figure appeared again, no one reacted. An extremely domineering and violent aura erupted from his body, carrying with it an indescribable sense of invasiveness and oppression. Many of the myriad demons ridge cultivators standing at the very front were instantly distracted and fell into a trance. Then, a flash of saber light swept up a storm of death. Blood splattered and severed limbs flew, accompanied by miserable screams. Below them, they descended. Fire. Countless figures stood in the air like dumplings. Wherever Lu Yi passed, no one could withstand a single blow. In an instant, he opened up a bloody path in the crowd and killed his way to Chu Yun and Zhou Pei. The two spell cultivators from Sacred Flame sect only just came back to their senses at this moment. Both of them were shocked and their eyes were filled with shock. Lu Yi had specifically targeted the two of them. In a group fight, the first priority was to deal with those with longer arms. This was common knowledge in the cultivation world of the 9 provinces. For people like spell cultivators, once they were given space and distance, they would be able to unleash their full power. Moreover, compared to weapon cultivators and body cultivators who were used to close combat, spell cultivators had weaker bodies and were easier to kill. There were many spell cultivators gathered here, especially Chu Yun and Zhou Pei. Who else could Lu Yi target but them? They had never expected that Lu Yi would be able to get close to them so easily. They knew that their fire dragon technique had ruined their plan, but they also didn't expect that Lu Yi would be able to come out unscathed under such a powerful attack. Spell cultivators who were close to weapon cultivators naturally had to quickly distance themselves. So when they saw Lu Ye's saber slashing down, the two of them didn't even think about it. They surged their spirit chi at the same time and a huge repulsive force swept out in all directions. Sha Chu and Xiao Yang immediately frowned. The feeling from the spirit artifact saber in his hand made him feel that something was wrong. Logically speaking, even if the power of his saber was reduced by the defensive spirit rune, it should have been enough to cut open Lu Ye's back. Coupled with the attacks of Tan Sheng and the others, Lu Yi would undoubtedly die. But judging from the feeling from the slash, the damage it caused to Lu Yi didn't seem to be as good as expected. He had once killed a 9th order body cultivator from Grand Heaven Alliance. The other party's physique was strong, so his slash couldn't cause any effective damage. At most, it would cause some flesh wounds. In that battle, he fought with the other party for half a day and finally killed him. The feeling from the slash on Lu Yi's body was even clearer and stronger than before. This guy has such a strong physique? Without time to think, Xia Liang's face changed. Not good. It turned out that Lu Yi had borrowed the power of these people's attacks to rush forward like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Zhou Pei. Zhou Pei's face changed. She and Chu Yun had just used their techniques to push Lu Yi away, even if there were 9 of them. Some of the myriad demon ridge cultivators were caught off guard and were thrown off their feet. The scene was chaotic. Lu Yi also seemed to have been pushed back a few dozen meters. However, Chu Yun clearly saw that Lu Yi had taken the initiative to retreat. He hadn't been pushed away. This guy has extremely rich experience in fighting against Dharma cultivators. He must have been tossed around like this before. But when Chu Yun saw the scene behind Lu Yi, his panicked mood immediately calmed down. Because this moment was enough for the nearby myriad demon ridge cultivators to come to their aid, especially Xia Liang and Tan Sheng. Powerful spirit qi surged. It was infuriating. Attacking left and right, their blood boiled as they attacked without mercy. Die! Xia Liang roared. He slashed the long saber in his hand at Lu Ye's back. At the same time, Tan Sheng and a few other myriad demon ridge cultivators who reacted quickly also attacked. Lu Yi seemed to have eyes on his back. As his spirit qi surged, a thick spirit tattoo suddenly formed and turned into a barrier. Many attacks fell on the barrier formed by the defensive spirit tattoo and shattered it. Then, many attacks fell on Lu Ye's body, slashing his back and causing blood to flow out. He needed an instant to calm down. At this moment, she was in her most vulnerable state. And Lu Yi actually arrived in front of her at this subtle moment. Feeling the oppressive and violent aura, she smelled the call of death. She desperately summoned her spirit qi, but didn't maintain her own defense. She had a feeling that such a defense was meaningless. Sparks of light emanated from his body and spread out, enveloping a large area. Every spark transmitted an extremely dangerous aura. The prelude to Liao Yuan's explosive burial. Once in the battle arena, Liao Yuan had used this secret technique of the Sacred Flame sect on Lu Yi. It was extremely powerful. If Liao Yuan could use it, so could Zhou Pei. It had to be said that this woman from the Sacred Flame sect was extremely decisive and ruthless. Not only was she ruthless to her enemies, but she was also ruthless to herself. Once such a technique was activated, Lu Yi would be swept up in it and she wouldn't be able to avoid it. At that time, who would live and who would die would depend on their own methods. Chapter 755. Since Zhou Pei chose to activate it at this time, a secret technique that did not distinguish between friend and foe naturally had a certain degree of confidence. In any case, she was the one who initiated the secret technique. Zhan was able to control himself to a certain extent, receiving the least impact and damage. Sparks filled the air. Originally, they wanted to come. Many of the myriad demons ridge cultivators who had rushed to the rescue also sensed the danger. He didn't dare to get any closer. Instead, he quickly retreated. Looking at the ferocious figure in front of him, Zhou Pei. Although she looked flustered, her beautiful eyes were filled with viciousness. Explode! Along with the sound, those inconspicuous sparks instantly brightened up in the sky. Small suns appeared in the sky. Scorching and destructive auras with the many little suns as it rose, it swept out in all directions, distorting the void. The rumbling sound of the song was endless, deafening. Clang! Junior sister Zhou. Not far away, Chu Yun gazed at the enormous light and chaos. In the place where the chaotic spiritual power surged, a worried expression appeared on his face. Color. But soon, his eyes became firm. Since junior martial sister Zhou chose to do this, then he could only believe it. However, in the next instant, his expression changed drastically. Because in the chaos of space invisible to the naked eye suddenly, an aura was extinguished. That aura was the one that accompanied him day and night. It was Zhou Pei's. However, there was no other aura that belonged to Lu Yi. There was not the slightest change. Chu Yun's pupils constricted, and the depths of his heart were instantly drowned by a great sorrow. Although he didn't want to believe it, he had no choice. He didn't see what happened, but he was sure. It was certain that junior sister Zhou had fallen. Chu Yun was not the only one who sensed this. Xia Liang, Tan Sheng, and the others' expressions changed at the same time. The afterglow of small suns dissipated, dazzling the light converged, and a blurry figure gradually appeared in the crowd. In his field of vision, judging from his height and figure, no, Who was Lu Yi? He stood in the middle of the raging flames. He was as steady as a mountain, twisting his body in the scorching heat. Another figure suddenly descended from midair. It was Zhou Pei who fell down silently. Looking around, he saw Zhou Pei's eyes widened as if he had seen something before he died. It was an extremely inconceivable thing. Blood was everywhere. It was obvious that he had been stabbed in the heart and died on the spot. Almost at the same time, Chu Yun instinctively turned his gaze to Zhou. At the moment of Pei's corpse, a fiery red light appeared. Suddenly, it emerged from the distorted space and shot towards Chu Yun. Chu Yun immediately regained his senses and looked over. The fiery red light was a pure condensation of spiritual power. The other end of the long whip was held in the ground. On Ye's hand. What is this? Chu Yun was shocked. He instinctively felt that this should be the case. It's the power of some kind of treasure, but it looks like it's a kind of treasure. What kind of sorcery? He did not have time to think. He could feel the might of the whip. He pulled away and was about to retreat. However, the long whip was like a spirit snake as it lashed out at him. With a pull and another roll, he tied him up tightly. Under normal circumstances, Chu Yun was a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. He shouldn't be so careless. Zhou Pei's death was to his benefit. The impact on his mind was too great, and he didn't expect Lu Yi to be able to do it. Using such a strange method, he was caught off guard. He made a move. The moment it was tied up, the other end of the long whip there was a huge pulling force, and no matter how Chu Yun struggled, he couldn't break free, and his body was pulled over uncontrollably. What shocked him even more was that not only did the long whip bind his physical body, but it also had a certain effect on his spirit energy. There was also a certain degree of suppression, making it impossible for him to resist. He had no strength left. In a trance, Lu Ye's cold face was imprinted in his eyes. Then, a snow-white saber light flashed past. The world was silent. Chu Yun stood in front of Lu Yi and watched quietly. Xia Liang and Tan Xing did not act rashly. Their eyes were filled with fear. Most of the other 10,000 Demons Ridge cultivators hadn't recovered yet. They had just recovered from the chaos and weren't sure what had happened. What had happened? Until this moment, when Zhou Pei used the Scorch Original Explosive Burial secret techniques, residual power slowly dissipated. The space returned to normal, and Lu Yi and Chu Yun were close to each other. What kind of spell is this? Chu Yun suddenly asked. He asked. At this moment he was finally sure. It bound him. His fiery red whip of spiritual power was a spell, and it was a spell. It wasn't the power of a rare treasure. He had read Lu Ye's information and knew that Lu Yi was a saber-using weapon cultivator. Not only did he have profound attainments in the Tao of Array, he also cultivated some spells. But the information had never mentioned such a spell. The existence of a spell, and in his knowledge, the 9-province cultivation world did not seem to have such a strange spell. As someone who had personally experienced the power of this spell, naturally, he could sense how powerful this technique was. This spell had the effect of binding the enemy, but it could also kill the enemy. God-beating whip. Lu Yi replied indifferently. This spell did not come from the talent tree, nor did it come from his own cultivation. It came from the dragon soaring realm. Qin Zhao, who had stirred up a storm at a certain time. At the end of his trip to the dragon soaring realm, he spied on the dragon soaring realm. The power of the origin saw countless or shining lights in it, or dim stars, each of which is a ray of light. It was the mark left behind by the experts who had once lived in the dragon soaring realm. It was the mark that they had once lived in the dragon soaring realm. It was proof that they had lived. Lu Yi spied on one of the marks and had a very strange experience. It was a miraculous experience, in which he was able to possess Qin Zhao's body and was born with him. They joined the sect, cultivated together, and fell together. They made a comeback and dominated the world together. Although only 2 days had passed since then. In that kind of dreamlike experience, Lu Yi had more than 2 days had passed. The important moments of Qin Zhao's life were imprinted. In his heart, he could empathize with Qin Zhao's cultivation. It could be said that during the time when he accompanied Qin Zhao as he grew up, He could take over everything that Qin Zhao had comprehended. The remnant origin of the dragon soaring realm was itself a huge treasure trove that had not been developed. And as a spell cultivator, Qin Zhao could use, there were naturally many types of spells that came, and they were exquisite and profound. The God-beating whip was a spell that Qin Zhao created himself. It was his best spell, so even if Lu Yi did not cultivate it before, he could easily use it at this moment. Of course, because of his limited cultivation, he could not use this spell. The full power of a spell could be used to deal with cultivators of the same realm, but it was more than enough. The world now only knew that Lu Yi was extremely skilled in the Tao of Arrays. However, no one knew of his high attainments on the path of Dharma cultivators. On the path of spell cultivators, he was far ahead of spell cultivators of the same realm. If he really wanted to, the spell that he could use was also, it was definitely not something that cultivators of the same realm could compare to. Amazing! Chu Yun praised. As a spell cultivator, he had even more experience. After personally experiencing the power of this spell, he naturally saw the mysteriousness of it. If such a spell cultivator were to cultivate it, when one reached a high level, once it was activated, no one would be able to get rid of it. He gently led the way. With just this simple action, his head had already fallen. Blood spurted out from his neck, and the incision was neat. It was neat. Lu Yi had already beheaded him with a single slash. Everyone was terrified. The 2 Cloud River Realm spell cultivators died just like that. They did not see clearly how Zhou Pei died. Because when the prairie fire explosion burial erupted, the scene was too chaotic. Lu Yi and Zhou Pei were both swept up in the chaos. They saw how Chu Yun died. There was a clue, but it was precisely because of this that they found it hard to believe. The Cloud River Realm 9th Order was already the limit of the Cloud River battlefield. The limit of Na was that he could call out wherever he went. No one dared to provoke a character who could summon the wind and rain. But in that short period of time just now, the 2 great powerful Cloud River Realm spell cultivators were killed just like that. Right under their noses. There were also more than a dozen 7th or 8th Order cultivators who died together. Cultivators. How long had it been? Since Lu Ye's sudden attack, it had only been 10 breaths. It was just a moment. Chapter 756. The death of 2 powerful 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators caused panic to spread. The main reason was that Chu Yun and Zhou Pei had died too quickly. In front of Lu Yi, it was as if they had no power to fight back. This undoubtedly had a great impact on the many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who were chasing after them. What are you waiting for? Let's attack together and kill him. Tan Sheng suddenly shouted. Lu Ye's performance was shocking, and his increase in strength was incredible, but he was still alone. No matter how strong he was, what could he do? He could kill a dozen people, but could he really kill dozens or even hundreds? Even so, there were 200 myriad Demon Ridge cultivators gathered here. They could grind him to death. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. The difference in numbers was the biggest advantage of the myriad Demon Ridge. It had to be said that although the cultivations of these myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were uneven, and they came from all over the world, they all had a fierce temperament. Therefore, even though the scene just now had shocked them, after Tan Sheng's voice fell, many cultivators still made a move together. After seeing how Lu Yi killed Chu Yun, no one dared to step forward rashly. They all urged their imperial artifacts or spells to attack Lu Yi. Lu Ye's spirit energy and vitality surged, intertwining to form a solid shield that emitted a scarlet color. At first glance, his whole body seemed to be burning. Facing the many attacks coming from all directions, he only focused on one direction. A pair of fiery red spirit energy wings spread out behind him, and his figure flickered as he pounced in that direction. Even if there are tens of thousands of people, I will go. His valiant and peerless aura coincided with the essence of the tyrant's saber art. Although he was in a fierce battle, Lu Yi still had many profound insights flowing through his mind. He had no time to comprehend them. In such a big battle, how could he have the time to do anything else? With Lu Ye's charge, many myriad demon ridge cultivators in this direction naturally hurriedly scattered. However, there were still some who did not react fast enough and could not dodge Lu Ye's attack. Surrounded by a courageous aura, the coiling mountain blade slashed out a snow-white blade light. Flapping his wings, his silhouette flew through the crowd. Blood splattered everywhere, and miserable shrieks rang out. Silhouettes fell from the sky. With one slash, several people died. Although the cultivation of those who died was not high, they were still able to succeed in such a situation. It was enough to show the ferocity of this slash. This was not the end. Lu Yi stared at the figure of a myriad devil ridge cultivator who was fleeing in front of him. Suddenly, his left and right hand, which was not holding a saber, slowly made a grabbing motion. In the center of his palm, a ball of condensed fiery red spiritual energy was caught in his palm. The spirit energy visible to the naked eye wriggled and changed. Under his exquisite control, it outlined a series of mysterious and complicated patterns. Like bamboo shoots after a rain, it grew rapidly and turned into a long whip in the blink of an eye. The deity striking whip reappeared. She raised her whip and lashed out at the figure. It struck the back of the myriad demon's ridge cultivator. This whip almost pulled out the soul of the myriad devil ridge cultivator. He screamed miserably and his heart was filled with grief and indignation. Why is it me? So many people are fleeing in all directions. Why am I the one being targeted? The moment he was hit by the deity-beating whip, he finally understood what Chu Yun felt before. He also understood why such a powerful ninth-order cultivator could not even resist in front of Lu Yi. Because of this whip, the spiritual energy in his body was scattered, and he almost couldn't maintain his body. Without giving him any time to resist, the deity-beating whip wrapped around him and fixed him in place. Lu Ye's figure swept past him and the mountain-coiling saber slashed in a subtle arc, no longer paying attention to him. The person left behind fell straight to the ground, his vitality dissipating. Chasing after the myriad demons ridge cultivators who were fleeing in all directions, the deity-beating whip in his hand constantly swept out. Every time, he killed a dozen people in a short period of time. Killing enemies in the same realm was like chopping melons and vegetables. In the past, these myriad demons ridge cultivators would only think that this was an exaggeration to describe a person's strength. But today they saw it with their own eyes. Every one of them was terrified. In terms of speed, they were not as fast as Lu Yi, so there was no way they could escape. Moreover, Lu Yi could use the deity-beating whip to restrain them. In the midst of the fierce battle, a cultivator full of vitality suddenly seized the opportunity and rushed towards Lu Yi from the side. Facing such a ferocious enemy, only a body cultivator with a strong physique would have the courage to do so. This body cultivator who suddenly attacked had been hiding in the crowd, not showing his strength. It was only at this moment that Lu Yi noticed his cultivation. Cloud River Realm 9th Order. It had to be said that the body cultivator who stood out at such a time made many myriad demons ridge cultivators feel relieved and relieved. The body cultivator held a spirit artifact shield in one hand and a mace-like spirit artifact in the other. Coupled with his burly figure, he gave off a strong sense of oppression. At this moment, Lu Ye's deity-beating whip just happened to wrap around a person not far away. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he pushed the spirit artifact shield in his hand forward. It slammed heavily into Lu Yi with an earth-shattering force. However, Li did not move at all. The body cultivator was shocked. The moment his spirit artifact shield slammed into Lu Yi, he felt as if he had hit an ancient tree rooted in the ground instead of a person. Shocked, he raised the spirit artifact in his other hand and smashed it down towards Lu Ye's head. Die! This strike was like a mountain pressing down. Accompanied by the eruption of his full strength, he was confident that no one in the same realm could block it. Even if Lu Ye's head was not smashed open, he would definitely be severely injured. Once that happened, he would die without a doubt if the surrounding people attacked again. The many thoughts that flashed through his mind were suddenly drowned out by boundless horror, because in the face of his aggressive strike, Lu Yi raised his saber to meet it. Attacking later, but arriving first, the collision of their spirit artifacts and spirit chi caused a loud bang. The crushing force of the mountains suddenly dissipated, and the mace that was smashing down was also firmly blocked. The body cultivator's eyes shrank to the size of a needle tip as he cried out involuntarily, "You! How can a weapon cultivator like you have such powerful strength?" However, before he could finish his words, an even more powerful force erupted. It was as if an earth dragon had turned over, and a copious and irresistible force attacked from the front. The weapon cultivator cried out in his heart, but before he could do anything, he was sent flying. Fortunately, he had a spirit artifact shield in front of him. Otherwise, this saber strike would have split him in two. Xia Liang roared, and a sharp saber intent swept out. Saber light flashed, enveloping Lu Yi, who was standing in place. At the same time, Tan Sheng also attacked from the side. Since Lu Yi made his move, the two of them had been looking for an opportunity. However, Lu Yi was chasing the fleeing myriad demon ridge cultivators, and they were chasing after Lu Yi, so they could not make a move at all. It was not until now that Lu Yi was blocked for a moment by a body cultivator that they had a good opportunity to make a move. Especially at this time, Lu Ye's back was facing him. Although Xia Liang did not want to take advantage of others, the other party was Lu Yi, so there was nothing to say. At the same time, he saw Tan Sheng, who was rushing over, being sent flying at an even faster speed than when he came. Before he could cause any real damage to Lu Yi suddenly turned around and slashed down with his saber. Xia Liang was suddenly alerted and instinctively raised his saber to block. Asterisk boom. Asterisk as if he had been hit by a meteorite, Xia Liang turned into a stream of light and flew straight to the ground, creating a crater. He got up in a sorry state, feeling the blood in his chest and abdomen tumbling, and his mouth was full of blood. So strong. Xia Liang's eyes trembled violently. When he realized that Lu Yi was already an 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivator, he was already mentally prepared to not be his opponent. But only when he faced him in person could he realize how terrifying and powerful his opponent was. Compared to when he, Tan Sheng, Chu Yun, and Zhou Pei worked together to send Lu Yi flying into the forbidden area outside the 100 Formation Pagoda, Lu Yi was completely different now. What made him feel even more horrified and sad was that after repelling him, Lu Yi did not choose to pursue him. Instead, he rushed to wherever there were more people. This seemed to mean that he, who had once chased Lu Yi all over the mountains and plains, was no longer qualified to be his opponent. Damn it! Xia Liang gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He calmed the blood in his chest and rushed into the sky again. As a core disciple of this generation of the Wild Blade sect, he shouldered the responsibility of bringing glory to the sect. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? On the other side, Tan Sheng felt the same way and made the same choice as Xia Liang. The cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge complained incessantly. At this moment, it looked like they were besieging Lu Yi, but in fact, it was like an ancient beast was robbing them. Wherever Lu Yi pounced, there would be the aura of death. The heads and limbs that had been chopped off by the long saber kept falling from the sky. Of the 200 people who chased Lu Yi out of Heaven G City, only a little more than 100 were left. The loss rate was as high as 40%. Hold on, he's about to die. In the midst of despair, someone roared to encourage them. In such a chaotic battle, even if Lu Yi had defensive spiritual tattoos protecting his body, it was impossible for him to be unscathed. At this point in the battle, his clothes were dyed red with blood, some of it his own, some of it his enemies'. The clothes on his upper body were almost torn into rags, hanging on his body. Through the gaps in his clothes, one could vaguely see the scars on his body. This was also the reason why the cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge did not retreat even after Lu Yi had killed so many enemies and displayed such ferocity. Lu Ye's strength was terrifying, but after all, a person's strength was limited. He had suffered so many injuries that he must be an arrow at the end of its flight. If they gave up now, all their previous efforts would be in vain. At this point in the battle, even if it was not for the huge reward, even if there was no enmity between them and Lu Yi, they still wanted to see the result with their own eyes. A result that everyone was looking forward to, the fall of a genius. 7017K. Chapter 757. The fierce battle raged on. Many figures danced in the air as colorful world energy rays intertwined and shuttled back and forth. Apart from a few Cloud River Ninth Order cultivators, none of the remaining Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators were Lu Ye's match. Whether it was a 7th Order or 8th Order cultivator, as long as Yang Kai found an opportunity, his saber would either kill or seriously injure them. Even the several Cloud River Ninth Order cultivators were unable to withstand the indescribably violent slashes and were forced into dire straits. The number of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators continued to decrease. However, even though Lu Yi looked miserable, his aura grew stronger and stronger as he fought, as if there was no end to it. The shouts of the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge rose and fell one after another, cheering for themselves and encouraging others at the same time. Lu Ye's tattered shirt was suddenly torn off. It was almost torn into strips of cloth, and his blood-stained shirt was torn off, revealing Lu Ye's slender and muscular upper body. His upper body was already stained red with blood, and under the scorching sun, he looked like he was wearing a red armor. However, all the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators' eyes were filled with shock at this moment. They finally understood why Lu Yi hadn't died yet. This was because his body was covered with wounds of various sizes. However, not a single drop of blood flowed out from each of the wounds. In fact, some of the wounds even showed signs of healing. What kind of recovery ability was this? What kind of terrifying physique did he have? Search. Before this, everyone thought that after suffering so many injuries, Lu Yi must be at the end of his rope. It wasn't until they saw the truth of his injuries that they understood. Everything before this was just their own wishful thinking. Their thoughts of hostility continued. Such an enemy was no longer someone they, Cloud River Realm cultivators, could deal with. He was a F***king monster. There had never been a lack of courageous cultivators in the group of cultivators. Previously, even if they had suffered many casualties, they would still fight to the death with Lu Yi. Now that they saw the reality and realized that they couldn't defeat the enemy in front of them, some of them naturally made the right choice. A low shout rang out, and the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivator who spoke immediately turned into a stream of light and fled into the distance. Knowing that you couldn't defeat your enemy, that wasn't bravery, but stupidity. There were many capable people in the world of cultivation. No one could say that they were invincible. If they couldn't win, they would run. There was nothing to be ashamed of. Preserving their lives was the most important thing. As soon as someone moved, someone immediately followed. In an instant, many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators gathered around Lu Yi. This was where the confidence of the Demon Ridge cultivators came from. Everyone in the Myriad Demon Ridge thought that he was Big Brother Chang's weakest, but in reality, the injuries he had suffered were just superficial wounds. He just looked miserable. Even those flesh wounds were rapidly recovering under the immense vitality of his body. Xiaoliang was right. Compared to before entering the Soaring Dragon Realm's secret realm, Lu Yi had indeed undergone a complete transformation. At this moment, after seeing the true state of Lu Ye's injuries, all the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who were still holding on to hope felt their bodies turn cold. They had worked so hard for so long and sacrificed so many lives, but they had only caused some superficial wounds to the enemy? What a laughable and pitiful scene. Unwillingness, anger, grievance, all kinds of emotions surged in their hearts, but it also caused many people to lose contact with Lu Yeji. They couldn't avoid the fate of dying one after another. Everyone was aghast. A huge question arose in their hearts. Why was Lu Yi still not dead? Why wasn't he dead? Up until now, many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had caused at least hundreds of injuries to him. Under normal circumstances, the other party should have lost the ability to fight. How could the more he fought, the fiercer he became? After another fierce confrontation, Lu Yi stood in midair. Cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge surrounded him from all directions. Lu Yi didn't attack again, and the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators didn't dare to act rashly. They were all on guard, secretly urging their spiritual power. The scene was tense. He raised his eyes and swept across the faces in front of him. He casually waved the mountain saber in his hand and grabbed it. his saber. Two of them were already dead, so there were only two left. He turned his head and stared at Tan Sheng, who was at the side. The moment their gazes met, a cold, murderous intent surged. Tan Sheng's heart skipped a beat. Without any hesitation, he quickly retreated and shouted, "Go!" These words were clearly shouted at Xia Liang. He had been targeted by Lu Yi. Based on the means that Lu Yi had shown just now, he felt that he was doomed. Even if Xia Liang was willing to stay and help him, the two of them were no match for the current Lu Yi. Since that was the case, he might as well survive. He would try his best to delay Lu Yi and give Xia Liang a chance to live. With this thought in mind, a bloody mist burst out from his body, and he used the fastest speed in his life to escape to the back. However, what he saw was that the fiery red wings on Lu Yi's back only flapped lightly, and he was even faster than him. Swoosh! More than a dozen people left. In the next moment, more people chose to leave, and a gap immediately appeared in the tight encirclement. Working together was an atmosphere. Once it was broken at such a juncture, it could no longer be maintained. More people began to flee. Lu Yi frowned. He didn't expect that just taking off his shirt would cause such a situation. In the battle, his shirt had been torn into strips of cloth. It would affect his performance if he continued to wear it, so it was naturally more convenient to take it off. But it caused such a result. However, he soon understood the reason for this. He didn't chase after the fleeing myriad Devil Ridge cultivators because there was no need. Among this group, he only had to kill 4 people. Dudu chased after him. The distance between them was rapidly closing. Sure enough, he couldn't escape. Tan Sheng's heart was cold. Between life and death, he was unprecedentedly calm. He desperately urged his spiritual power and burned his qi and blood, just to increase his speed by a little and delay Lu Yi as much as possible. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3. The distance between them was already less than 10 feet. Tan Sheng's retreating figure suddenly stopped. Then, in an incomprehensible way, he changed from extreme stillness to extreme motion, brazenly pouncing toward Lu Yi, the long spear in his hand stabbing out. Time seemed to stop at this moment. Tan Sheng's heart suddenly gave birth to all kinds of understanding. This spear, which he had poured all his strength into, had exceeded his own limits. There were great terrors between life and death, but also great opportunities. In his perception, the vitality in Lu Yi's body was like a ball of fire burning fiercely, vigorous, and frightening. The strong vitality naturally made the physique stronger, and at the same time, it also made the recovery ability more outstanding. Before the trip to the Soaring Dragon Realm, Lu Yi's physique was comparable to a body cultivator of the same level. And the trip to the Soaring Dragon Realm allowed him to obtain the final source of the Soaring Dragon Realm. After coming back from the dead, his vitality was as vast as the sea. This was also why when Lu Yi rushed out of the Soaring Dragon Realm, Hua Xiai sensed that his vitality was almost comparable to Shui Yuan's. The benefits of a vast vitality were not only tyrannical recovery ability. It could also make the physique stronger. Of course, it was not at the level of a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, but if a Cloud River Realm cultivator wanted to cause real effective damage to him, it would be difficult. It would be very difficult. This was why he dared to face more than 2 million people alone. Comparatively speaking, Xia Liang gave Lu Yi a greater sense of threat, and Tan Sheng was always a level higher. Now it seemed that he really couldn't underestimate anyone. Perhaps those who were originally inferior to others could surpass those who came later after an epiphany. In the face of this awe-inspiring spear, Lu Yi quickly raised his saber and stabbed forward. Tan Sheng was still immersed in his many comprehensions, wholeheartedly devoted to his spear. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed. The scorching sun was clearly shining in the sky, but he seemed to see a sky full of twinkling stars. Then, those twinkling stars wrapped in the sky and poured down. The stars fell, drowning the figure of the dragon. No matter how the dragon struggled and roared, it was useless. All the scenery shattered like an illusion. Tan Sheng was still in midair, holding his spear. Breathing heavily, he quietly looked at Lu Yi in front of him. This spear thrust with the intention of perishing together with the enemy allowed Tan Xing to see through the secret of his own sect, a trace of the mystery of the great sage dragon spear. It turned out that he had practiced it wrong before. Lu Yi was aware of this momentary change in Tan Xing. When his spear thrust forward, Lu Yi couldn't help but feel a trace of danger. In a trance, what appeared in his vision was not a spear, but a dragon shaking its head and wagging its tail. Opening its bloody mouth, it wanted to swallow him into its stomach. Spear intent. Tan Xing's spear had undoubtedly touched upon the level of intent. If he survived this time, his strength would definitely grow by leaps and bounds, and he would have a chance to become one of the strongest Cloud River Realm cultivators. Tan Xing and Xiao Liang had been inseparable these days. Both of their cultivations were Cloud River 9th Order, but when he looked down, he saw that his spear had pierced Lu Ye's waist and abdomen, but it had only pierced 3 inches into his flesh, not piercing through Lu Ye's entire body. Lu Ye's physique was so strong that it made people jealous. What kind of saber technique is this? Tan Xing asked. Starry sky. Lu Yi answered as he raised his hand and pulled out the spear that had pierced into his body. Blood burst out, but soon, the flesh around the wound wriggled and no more blood flowed out. It's really powerful. Tan Xing was not stingy with his praise. Changing the topic, he said, It's not that my great sage dragon spear is inferior to your starry sky, it's that my cultivation is not good enough, and my skill is inferior. After saying this, his head suddenly hung down, and the aura that had locked his body dissipated. His whole body was like a balloon that had been pierced with countless holes. Blood flew out and fell straight to the ground below. Tan Xing was dead. Even before his death, he seriously defended the prestige of his sect's secret technique. Lu Yi could understand, but since they were enemies, and the other party had repeatedly made things difficult for him before, he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Chapter 758. Before, his cultivation and strength were insufficient, so he could only try his best to escape and protect himself. Now that he had enough strength to fight back, he naturally had to take revenge. Turning around, he saw that the remaining myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had already fled. Even Xia Liang's back was the only thing left. He was smart enough to escape in the direction of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union. It seemed that he knew that only by escaping back to the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union would he have a chance to survive. The first 2 times, Lu Yi had made such a choice when he was being hunted down. Now, the tables had turned and Xia Liang had made the same choice. It was a great irony. Lu Yi was not in a hurry to chase after him. Instead, he landed and collected his spoils of war. A Cloud River Realm cultivator's wealth was not small, especially when more than 100 Cloud River Realm cultivators had died at Lu Ye's hands. Even if he did not lack cultivation resources, he could not waste them like this. After a while, he soared into the sky again and chased after Xia Liang. In the distance, Xia Liang desperately fled, his heart full of sorrow. Previously, in the restaurant, he had told Tan Xing that this might be their last chance because Lu Ye's strength had increased too quickly. If they did not succeed this time, they might not be Lu Ye's opponent the next time they met. But in fact, Lu Yi did not even give them this chance. The expected 7th Order cultivator had turned into an 8th Order cultivator. Moreover, the terrifying strength Lu Yi displayed made it difficult for him to look back. He had directly crushed them with absolute strength. Before this, he did not dare to believe that a Cloud River Realm cultivator could be so powerful. Tan Xing's aura behind him had disappeared. He knew in his heart that Tan Xing was dead. They had been together for so long, and they had been working together to kill Lu Yi. It was impossible to say that they had no friendship. This made him feel a sense of sadness. He took a moment to look back and did not see Lu Ye's figure chasing after him. However, he did not let down his guard. He still surged his spirit energy and desperately fled. He made up his mind that if he could escape this time, he would immediately return to the 9 states. He was no longer Lu Ye's opponent at the Cloud River Realm. Only by breaking through to the True Lake Realm would he have a chance of defeating him. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Suddenly, a sharp aura came from afar. Xia Liang was shocked. He turned around and saw a red light in his field of vision. The red light wrapped a blurry yet familiar figure. It seemed to be unhurried, but in fact, it was rapidly approaching him. So fast. Xia Liang gritted his teeth and continued to summon his strength. However, his current speed was already his limit and he could not go any faster. Fortunately, Heaven's legacy city was already in front of him. After estimating the difference in speed between him and Lu Yi, and then looking at Heaven's legacy city, Xia Liang's heart shook. I have a chance. I have a chance to escape to the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union. A strong will to live that he had never felt before surged out from his heart, making him feel as if his blood and qi were burning. As they got closer to Tianji City, Xia Liang was just about to let out a long sigh of relief when Lu Ye's indifferent voice came from behind him. That's right, when Lu Ye was in the 5th Order Cloud River realm, his speed was almost on par with Yang Kai's. Now that he was in the 8th Order, in terms of flying speed alone, no one in the entire Cloud River battlefield would be faster than him. Only now did Xia Liang understand that the speed Lu Yi had shown before was not his limit. But why was he chasing after him so leisurely? Xia Liang suddenly understood. Lu Ye not only wanted to kill him, but also destroy his heart. He had deliberately let Xia Liang see hope of escape, but at the most critical moment, he had personally extinguished this hope. How vicious! The aura locked onto Xia Liang's body was becoming more and more solid. The aura belonging to Lu Ye was also getting closer and closer. Looking at the heavenly secret city in front of him, Xia Liang knew that he could not escape. The look in his eyes suddenly became resolute. He turned around, his eyes filled with determination and ferocity as he charged at Lu Yi. Since he was doomed to not be able to escape, he would fight to the death. In the blink of an eye, the two figures collided. Two long swords were unsheathed at the same time and slashed towards each other. Both sides' spirit chi exploded at the same time. Looking from afar, it was like two small suns had exploded in the sky. It was only a momentary stalemate, but one of them was sent flying. The spirit chi on his body became extremely dim, revealing Xia Liang's battered figure. Previously, when he and the other myriad demon ridge cultivators besieged Lu Yi, he had fought with Lu Yi several times. However, he had suffered a big loss each time. It could be said that his strength had been damaged. In such a state, how could he gain any advantage in a head-on confrontation with Lu Yi? In mid-air, Xia Liang tried his best to stabilize his body, but Lu Yi had already caught up with him. The long sword in his hand slashed towards his head again. Xia Liang was worthy of being a core disciple of this generation of the Wild Blade sect. Even in such a disadvantageous situation, he still did not give up resisting. He raised the spirit artifact in his hand and accurately blocked Lu Ye's blow. However, before he could catch his breath, Lu Ye's other hand had already reached out and placed on his face. In the palm of his hand, a violent force suddenly erupted. Xia Liang only felt as if he had been hit head-on. His already unstable body fell down uncontrollably like a meteorite crashing to the ground. With a bang, he landed 300 feet in front of the Tianji city, directly smashing a large hole in the ground. For a moment, he was dazzled and his body went limp. He did not know how many bones in his body were broken. At this time, many cultivators were coming and going. When they saw the battle scene, they all stopped to watch. Someone exclaimed, recognizing Lu Ye's identity at a glance. Following this exclamation, more people saw Lu Ye's figure. At this time, people's hearts were restless and almost couldn't help but attack. However, very soon, another exclamation was heard. Wild Blade Sect, Xia Liang? The cultivator who recognized Xia Liang's identity was filled with disbelief, almost thinking that he had recognized the wrong person. The Wild Blade Sect was a first-grade sect, and Xia Liang was the leader of this generation. He had made a name for himself when he was in the Spirit Stream tier, and his reputation in the Cloud River battlefield was not small. It could be said that he was the strongest group of people in the Cloud River battlefield. There were definitely not many people in the Cloud River tier who could defeat him. But such a strong person was beaten like a dead dog at this moment? And the one who attacked was the famous Lu Yi? What was going on? In mid-air, Lu Yi held his saber and walked down step by step. It was as if there were layers of invisible stairs under his feet. His steps were calm, but his body was wrapped in a fierce aura. It was not that he did not see the Wanmo Ridge cultivators who were ready to attack him, but he did not care. Previously, he could kill 200 enemies by himself. Naturally, he could do the same now. Whoever dared to attack him would die. He did not mind killing in front of the Tianji city. In the pit, Xia Liang stood up shakily, and a mouthful of blood rushed to his heart. He could not suppress it and spat out a mouthful of blood. His vision blurred as he looked at the familiar yet strange figure standing in front of him. He knew that in this year-long battle with Lu Yi, he had completely lost. And the price of failure was extremely heavy. The Tianji city was just 300 feet behind him, but he had no chance to break in. He spat out the blood in his mouth and held his saber with one hand. His weak aura was suddenly released, and his eyes were unresigned, but there was no regret. Memories flashed through his mind as if he had recalled something. Then, Xia Liang let out a deafening roar. Brazen and fearless, even if he was disabled, he took the initiative to launch the final attack. Because his life and death were not only related to himself, but also the honor of the Wild Blade sect. Lu Yi also rushed towards him. The two figures crossed each other. Lu Yi stood still, shook off the blood on his saber, and put it back into its sheath. His faint voice sounded in Xia Liang's ears, "Our grudge ends here." Xia Liang stood still, and his head drooped little by little. His vitality was quickly dissipating. The long saber was planted on the ground, supporting his body. The whole place was silent. All the cultivators who saw this scene, whether they were from the Haotian Alliance or the Wanmo Ridge, felt that it was incomprehensible and unbelievable. They did not see what happened before. But at the last moment, Xia Liang of the Wild Blade sect was killed by Lu Yi, and they saw it clearly. The restless cultivators of the Wanmo Ridge could not help but extinguish the thoughts in their hearts. Lu Yi looked like he was covered in wounds and blood, but his aura was like the sun in the sky, making people unable to look at him directly. Everyone had a feeling that if they made a move at this time, they would be the one to die. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Yi walked towards the Tianji city. Until his figure disappeared, no one dared to block his way. He did not collect any spoils of war because Xia Liang did not have a storage bag. Lu Yi guessed that Xia Liang had the void tattoo like him. For a cultivator with a background like Xia Liang, there must be a spirit tattooist in the sect. It was not difficult for him to inscribe a void tattoo. Long after Lu Yi left, the cultivators of the Wanmo Ridge came forward to collect Xia Liang's corpse. Half an hour later, a piece of shocking news quickly spread throughout the alliance. Xia Liang of the Wild Blade sect, Tan Sheng of the New Moon sect, Chu Yun and Zhou Pei of the Sacred Flame sect, led by more than 2 million cultivators of the Wanmo Ridge to hunt down Lu Yi. In the end, Lu Yi brazenly killed them all by himself. Chu Yun and Zhou Pei were killed on the spot, and the rest were less than 40%. Then, Tan Sheng was killed, and Lu Yi chased Xia Liang all the way to the Tianji city. 300 feet outside the Tianji city, under everyone's gaze, he killed the core disciple of the Wild Blade sect on the spot. According to the memories of the surviving cultivators of the Myriad Demon Ridge, the strength that Lu Yi had displayed in this battle had already surpassed the level of the Cloud River tier. Added with the fact that his physique and life force were extremely powerful, all of the wounds that he had sustained were only superficial, and they didn't affect him in the slightest. This was why he had such an unbelievable battle record. Chapter 759. When the news spread, the entire Cloud River battlefield was in an uproar. There were believers, and there were also those who didn't. No matter what, in the same realm. With one person's body. Against more than 200 people, the lone person had obtained a great victory. The side with more people had suffered heavy casualties. This matter was too far from the truth. Strange. Indeed, earlier, 2 cultivators from Myriad Demon Ridge had died. There were rumors of Lu Yi's hand. But that time, Lu Yi had used some kind of highly poisonous substance. Seduso, CC starter. In the end, It was equivalent to him secretly poisoning those earth cultivators. It didn't matter how strong or weak he was. The situation was completely different from this time. Even if one didn't experience it personally, just thinking about that one person's battle alone, the scene of fighting 200 enemies was enough to make one's blood boil. Not to mention, Lu Yi also killed those people who either died or fled. They fled. It could be foreseen that the aftermath of this matter would definitely still be in the Cloud River battlefield. It would ferment in the battlefield for a while, and the news would definitely spread to the 9 prefectures. At that time, the various myriad demon ridge sects would probably be wary of Lu Yi. It would be even deeper. This matter was neither big nor small. After all, it was only a Cloud River realm. The impact of a matter at the realm level was limited. As time passed, it would slowly be forgotten and buried in the depths of memory. Somewhere. While the news outside was abuzz, Lu Yi had already brought along Hua Si and Yi Nong, who all the way from Heaven's Legacy City to Taimang. Outside the mountain. A few months ago, many myriad demon ridge cultivators forced him. He had no choice but to take the initiative to leave the returned Sky Valley Spirit Land. At that time, he was only a 5th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Who would have thought that in just a few months, he was already a Cloud River Realm cultivator? An 8th-order Origin Realm Master had returned once again. And this time, even if the Yang Qi leaked out, no one would dare to cause trouble for him. As for the result of the previous battle, many people expressed their disbelief. They didn't dare to believe it, but Lu Ye's strength had been recognized. After all, killing Xia Liang in front of Heaven's Legacy City happened in front of everyone. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, it couldn't be faked. It could be said that this battle was enough for Lu Yi to ascend to the Cloud River realm, the strongest sequence of the realm. And he was only an 8th-order realm cultivator. He could still advance to the 9th level. Realm. Tentavis. Back in the Spirit Stream battlefield, Lu Yi was a Heaven 8 cultivator. Fighting his way to the top of the Spirit Stream ranking, he looked down on everyone and was invincible. After advancing to Heavenly 9, he would be able to fight against Overlord-level demons without falling. Being at a disadvantage, he had single-handedly suppressed all the major sects in the core circle. Now, something similar might happen again. This made the cultivators of many sects in the Myriad Demons Ridge feel happy. Kyo's situation at the Cloud River battlefield was quite different from the situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield. There was no sect encampment in the city, so no matter how strong Lu Ye was, even if it was big, it would be difficult for it to cause any hindrance to the various sections. In the Taimang Mountains. Along the way, they didn't see anything. He stopped. Soon, they arrived at Huitian Valley. A familiar scene entered his eyes. The array had already been opened. A figure stood at the entrance of the valley and jumped around. It was because he had received the news in advance. Li Baxian, Feng Yuechan, and Giant Armor. 4th senior brother, senior sister Feng, Giant Armor, were back. He cheered excitedly, obviously in a good mood. Li Baxian greeted him with a smile and looked him up and down. Yi, after making sure that he was intact, then nodded. Little junior brother, you have received it. Bitter. His mood was a little complicated. His little junior brother was now an 8th order, and he had been painstakingly cultivating in the Spirit Land. Now, he was only a 7th order. Not to mention that he was already one realm lower than Lu Yi in terms of cultivation. Only then. He had heard the news that Lu Yi had occupied 200 enemies by himself. He had heard it. He had also received confirmation from Lu Yi. Although he found it unbelievable, since it came from Lu Ye's mouth, he naturally believed it. Of course. So he clearly realized that. Between himself and his little junior brother. Not to mention that there was a world of difference in strength. He was definitely no longer. He was no match for him. But no matter what. It was a good thing that little junior brother was strong. The vendor on the street took care of it. 5. He had Xieye and himself in the outside stirring up wind and rain. The one who was most worried about him was probably 4th senior brother. However, Sect Master and 2nd senior sister were in the 9 regions. It was inconvenient for them to know what was happening on their side. But fourth senior brother was very clear about it. The saddest part was yes, facing Lu Ye's situation he couldn't help much. Last time, he and Feng Yuechan left with the giant armor. They were going to meet up with Lu Yi outside the 100 Formation Pagoda, but they didn't manage to get up. In the end, it was Hua Ci who put in a lot of effort to bring Lu Yi out. He came out. Li Baxian shook his head slowly and patted Lu Yi on the shoulder. As long as he was safe. Then he looked at Hua Ci and nodded. Junior sister Hua Ci has also worked hard. To be honest, he still didn't understand until now. Hua Ci was a medical cultivator. How did she manage to catch so many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators? She was the one who brought Lu Yi out of danger. Moreover, she had just advanced to the Cloud River realm. His junior brother and junior sister didn't seem to be Qi Zhongji. This made him feel gratified, but he also couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. Illusion. Compared to the vast majority of Cloud River realm cultivators, his and Feng Yuechan's cultivation speed was already fast enough. Mi had been in the Cloud River battlefield for less than 2 years. 99% of cultivators couldn't reach his current cultivation level. And because he had more than 10 years of Spirit Stream Realm Foundation, his true strength was definitely not comparable to an ordinary 7th Order cultivator. At the very least, Li Baxian was confident that he could fight against Xia. Good but undefeated. One had to know that sword cultivators could kill enemies above their level, not to mention moreover, he was Li Baxian. The pride in his heart made him understand that he had to speed up his cultivation efficiency. Otherwise, in the future, if he was left behind by his junior brothers and sisters, he wouldn't even be able to see their shadows. If he couldn't see them, he would lose face. While they were talking, Hoopa had already jumped onto Giant Armor's head. On the bag, he lay down steadily. Even though they hadn't seen each other for a long time, Hoopa and Giant Armor's feelings had never changed. Following Lu Yi, his master, outside. The adventures on the surface were brilliant, but by Giant Armor's side, he had was a unique feeling of comfort. Giant Armor smiled at Yuji. A ray of white light shone brightly under the old light. It was shining brightly. After not seeing him for a few months, this guy seemed to have become much stronger. Hidden in an ant's body was an amazing vitality and eruption. Lu Yi stood in front of him. It was as high as his chest. He gently hammered his chest, making a sound of metal being smashed. The sound of collision. Lu Yi was very doubtful. Even with his current strength, if he didn't activate the sharp spirit tattoo, could he break through this guy's physical defense? In terms of physical strength alone, Lu Yi felt that there were 3 of him. Together, they might not be able to compare to the Giant Armor. However, to a certain extent, the creator was still male. It was flat. Giant Armor was talented, but there were still some problems with his intelligence. To ordinary people, his intelligence was undoubtedly not high. He was not a fool, but his thinking was relatively simple. After a long separation, they were lively and chatting and laughing. In the end, Feng Yuechan couldn't help but sigh. Are you going to stand outside and talk like this? Li Baxian slapped his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let's go back first. Speak. Everyone then headed inside together. After entering the range of the formation, the beautiful scenery of Huitian Valley was immediately imprinted in their eyes. Sister Hua Ci, isn't this place beautiful? Yi moved closer to Hua Ci. While showing off, when Lu Yi chose this place to bury the spring spirit, she was happy for a long time. Girls always like beautiful things. Yi is the prettiest. Hua Ci pinched Yi's face lovingly. Little face. Nong Yi was instantly overjoyed and held Hua Ci's arm. She acted coquettishly. Among the flowers and plants, giant wolves were resting. They slowly stood up and looked towards the crowd. One of them was a huge wolf. Its fur was snow-white, and its body was particularly tall. It was even more human-like. He nodded slightly at Lu Yi. This was the first time Hua Ci had seen so many demon general-level beasts. She couldn't help but click her tongue in wonder. She couldn't understand why Li Baxian and the others were how could they coexist peacefully with such a pack of wolves? The wolves have helped us a lot. Previously, when we left the Spirit Land, at that time, They were guarding the house and waiting for us to return. There were no signs of invasion here, Li Baxin said as he walked. But then again, the spirit land of Huitian Valley was Lu Ye's spirit land. Many people knew about this matter, and no one was blind enough to do so. They dared to cause trouble. Even Xiao Yang and the others only dared to chase after Lu Yi. Why would they target the spirit land of Huitian Valley? Before Lu Yi left, he had left behind some harsh words. The number of lines in the group was much better? Post 10 sentences. He remembered that when he left, the wolf pack was only about 300. Looking around, it was obvious that there were more than 300. Li Baxin smiled and said, I don't know where the Wolf King came from. He would gather some of his clansmen back, and slowly, there would be more. Fortunately, these wolves would go out to hunt on their own, and they wouldn't do anything to disturb Baxin and the others. All they needed was a night with moonlight. At night, they would cultivate with the giant armor. Otherwise, just how to feed these beasts would be a big question. A problem. Now, Lu Ye's strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. His Dao attainments had also increased tremendously. In addition, there were so many demon wolves. In the entire Cloud River battlefield, other than the Tianji Business Alliance, there was probably only one side with Huitian Valley. The defense was the strongest. In the center of Huitian Valley, there were a few wooden houses scattered around. Lu Ye's house had naturally been preserved, and there was a new wooden house. The house was next to Lu Ye's. This is junior sister Hua Xi's house. Yuechan and I will fight together. I don't know if it suits junior sister's wishes. If it's not satisfied, junior sister, just say it. How could Hua Xi be dissatisfied? She could stay in the 10,000 Poisons forest. Staying in such a place for nearly a year was not good for her life. The requirements of the environment were not too high. Very good. Thank you, fourth senior brother and senior sister Feng. Then you guys rest first. I'll prepare. I'll give it to you later. You guys welcome me, Li Baxin said with a smile. He had already taken out of his storage bag. He took out an apron and tied it around his waist. He looked like he was going to personally cook. The chef looked like he was going to do something. Such a big sword cultivator, but now he was acting like a chef. If Li Luxian's people were going to eat, Quan Zhu was going to eat. Surprise. But this was the other side of Li Baxin that no one knew. His cooking skills were actually quite good. Chapter 760. Return. Reunion. There was wine. Wild drinking. Tipsy. Under the moonlight, the few of them sat around a wooden table. The table was filled with delicacies that Li Baxin had meticulously cooked. The group chatted and laughed, toasting each other. Lu Ye's heart also calmed down. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, there was a sect encampment, a place where sect cultivators could feel a sense of belonging. The Cloud River battlefield was different. 90% of Cloud River tier cultivators did not have a fixed residence on the Cloud River battlefield. They wandered everywhere in search of opportunities that belonged to them. Although the number of spirit lands was not small, not everyone could obtain them. Huitian Valley's spirit lands were created by Lu Yi single-handedly. It had resisted the invasion of many myriad demons ridge cultivators here. He had a sense of belonging to this place. He also had his fourth senior brother, Feng Yuechan, giant armor, and the others with him. The outside world was exciting, but in the entire Cloud River battlefield, this was the place where he could stay. The moon was high in the sky. The bright moonlight poured down, covering the entire Huitian Valley with a layer of silver frost. Giant armor finished the wine in the jar and got up to walk to the side. The wolf pack gathered tightly under the lead of the Wolf King. Giant armor's huge and burly figure was particularly eye-catching even among the wolf pack. Looking around, it was as if he was the Wolf King walking alone and the wolf pack following him. He came to the place where he usually cultivated and got into that strange and unique posture. As he breathed, visible moonlight fell from the sky and was swallowed into his lungs. The howls of the wolves rose and fell one after another. Many of the demon wolves followed suit and bathed in the moonlight. As giant armor breathed, more and more moonlight gathered in Huitian Valley. It became denser and denser. The entire valley was covered in a hazy halo, as if it was in a sea of moonlight. No matter how many times I see it, I still find it incredible. Li Baxian sighed in amazement. He had never seen or heard of Giant Armor's unique cultivation method before. It did not seem to be a cultivation method, but a kind of instinct, a kind of talent. He had tried to understand the mysteries of this cultivation method by Giant Armor's side before, but unfortunately, he did not gain anything. After these days, the wolf pack's overall strength had increased significantly with Giant Armor's cultivation. Without paying any more attention to Giant Armor, the two brothers continued to drink and chat until the sky was about to brighten. Only then did they return to their rooms to rest. It was rare that Lu Yi did not cultivate. Instead, she lay on her bed and had a good sleep. Ever since he left Huitian Valley the last time, he had been running around and fighting. After that, he entered the secret realm of the Soaring Dragon Realm. Even if he occasionally rested during this period, it was only to recover his physical strength and spirit. At this moment, using the hazy drunkenness, he finally completely relaxed. He slept all the way until evening. If it wasn't for Hoopa licking his face, he would have slept even longer. In a daze, he raised his hand to grab the amber and threw it to the side. He slowly sat up and felt his entire body relax. The exhaustion of the past few days was swept away, and his mind was unprecedentedly calm and clear. A person's mind was like a bowstring. If it had been bouncing around for too long, an appropriate amount of rest and adjustment could often bring about great satisfaction. He, Hua Si, and Feng Yuechan's soft laughter could be heard from outside the house. There was still some fragrance at the tip of his nose. It seemed that fourth senior brother had personally cooked again. He got up and pushed the door open. Sure enough, in front of the stove, Li Baxian was wearing an apron and busying himself. The three women were assisting on the side. "Morning," Lu Yi subconsciously greeted, causing everyone to be stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Lu Yi looked up at the sky and saw the shadow of the moon hanging high in the sky. It was obviously going to be dark soon. Not long after, everyone sat around the table again and tasted Li Baxian's cooking. However, this time, they did not drink wine. Li Baxian only made some bland food. After all, cultivation was the most important task of a cultivator. No one was willing to waste time. Wasting time at this time might be the source of disadvantage in future battles. They had already delayed for a day. After today, everyone would enter their own cultivation. During this time, Lu Yi thought of something and took out 2 jade slips from his storage space. He handed one to Li Baxian and the other to Feng Yuechan. "This is..." Li Baxian looked at Lu Yi in confusion. "A sword art," Lu Yi casually explained. In the Dragon Soaring Realm's secret realm, the one who left the deepest impression on him was not the bald monk with a strong physique and vigorous vitality from the Vajra Temple, nor was it the magic cultivators of the Imperial Heavenly Sect who were proficient in all kinds of mysterious techniques. It was the sword cultivators of the Howran Academy. Especially the sword art. Lu Yi did not understand the way of sword cultivation, but this did not prevent him from seeing that it was an extremely profound sword art. He casually mentioned it in front of Yuan Changsuan that day, and Yuan Changsuan quickly sent the rubbing of the sword art over. In normal times, it was naturally impossible for such a top force to impart to outsiders, not to mention sending a rubbing for others to study. However, at that time, the Dragon Soaring Realm was on the verge of destruction. Lu Yi was also recognized as the savior of the world. Not to mention the sword art, even if Lu Yi asked to be the dean of the Howran Academy, Yuan Changsuan would probably welcome him and abdicate. Compared to the survival of an entire domain, what was a single sword technique worth? Not only did Yuan Changsuan send over the sword art, but the Imperial Heavenly Sect also sent over many secret techniques. The Vajra Temple also sent over secret techniques to temper one's physique. Li Baxian was born in the Jade Blood Sect and later joined the Pill Heart Sect. However, the Pill Heart Sect was not a sword cultivation sect. Although he had cultivated in the North Profound Sword Sect for a period of time, it was only as a normal exchange between cultivators of different sections. No matter how much the sword master of the North Profound Sword Sect appreciated him, He was not a disciple of the North Profound Sword sect. The sword master could not teach him too much core knowledge. Li Baxuan was born to be a sword cultivator who was famous for killing. If he could stay in the North Profound Sword sect, his achievements would definitely be much higher than what he was now. The sword master of the North Profound Sword sect had personally visited the Pill Heart sect and expressed that he wanted to take Li Baxuan as his disciple. Unfortunately, a despicable person interfered and did not get what he wanted. After that, Li Baxuan's spirit acupoints were destroyed and he was stuck in the spirit stream realm for more than 10 years. Now that he had accumulated enough, his cultivation improved rapidly. However, he was not much better off than Lu Yi on the path of sword cultivation. He was basically fumbling his way forward. The book Sword Mantra was a timely help to him at this moment. Its usefulness was far greater than Lu Yi had imagined. Therefore, when Li Baxuan picked up the jade slip and immersed himself in it, he was instantly immersed in it and could not extricate himself. Feng Yuechan also picked up the jade slip in front of her. After checking it, she found that it was full of records of many mysterious secret techniques. She also read it with great interest. In the Pill Heart sect, her status was much higher than Li Baxuan's. After all, her birth mother was a vice sect master of the Pill Heart sect. However, the Pill Heart sect only rose to prominence a few decades ago. Its foundation was not strong and could not be compared to those large sects with long histories. The things passed down by the Imperial Heavenly sect were naturally stronger than the Pill Heart sect. The things recorded in the Jade Slip were undoubtedly very attractive to her. Li Baxuan and Feng Yuechan were immersed in the Jade Slip and could not extricate themselves. Lu Yi did not disturb them and just ate by himself. After a long while, Li Baxuan let out a long breath and came back to his senses. He looked at Lu Yi and said, "Little junior brother, I won't say thanks to you. This sword art has helped senior brother a lot." Although he did not know where Lu Yi obtained this sword art, it was undoubtedly extremely precious. It must not have been easy for Lu Yi to obtain it. "It's good that it's useful to senior brother," Lu Yi smiled. After a while, Feng Yuechan also came back to her senses and thanked Lu Yi with a smile. "Senior sister Feng is too polite. We're family, there's no need for formalities," Lu Yi said casually. Feng Yuechan pondered for a moment before her eyes curved into crescents. She smiled even more happily and nodded repeatedly, "Little junior brother is right." With such a harvest, both Li Baxuan and Feng Yuechan could not wait to comprehend the mysteries in the Jade Slip. Although the things inside could not help them improve their cultivation, they could increase their strength. Lu Yi saw this and said, "Fourth senior brother, senior sister Feng can go on ahead. I'll take care of things here later." Li Baxuan nodded, "Then I'll leave it to you." He stood up and walked towards his room. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and said, "Oh right, remember to sign up for the Cloud River contest. There are only a few days left." After Li Baxuan and Feng Yuechan left, Lu Yi was confused. What's the Cloud River contest? Why did he need to sign up? He had never heard of this before. Hua Xi explained, "It's a grand event operated by Heaven's Secrets." She slowly explained to Lu Yi. Lu Yi finally understood what the Cloud River contest was. On the Spirit Stream battlefield, there was a Spirit Stream list. Countless Spirit Stream tier cultivators fought for a place on the list and obtained various rewards from Heaven's Secrets to strengthen their foundations. However, there was no such thing as a Cloud River list on the Cloud River battlefield. There was only the Cloud River contest that was held once every 5 years. All Cloud River tier cultivators who wanted to participate could sign up through the Heaven's Secrets pillar. When the time limit was up, they would fight with different opponents under the arrangements of Heaven's Secrets. After these battles, the top 100 strongest cultivators would be determined. They would be the so-called Cloud River Top 100. Similar to the Spirit Stream list. And these 100 people would all be able to obtain rewards from Heaven's Secrets. The reward for first place is 20 golden spirit lots. So generous? Lu Yi was shocked. He had worked so hard in the mystery realm of the dragon soaring realm, and had almost lost his life. In the end, he had mobilized the power of the entire dragon-soaring realm to lay down the great heaven-mending formation. Only then did he obtain close to 20 golden spirit lots, and this was under the premise that the Battle Merit Pavilion had given him a 10% discount. The reward for first place in the Cloud River contest was actually more than what he had obtained in the dragon-soaring realm. However, after thinking about it, it was not that strange. After all, this was a grand event that only happened once every 5 years. Moreover, it was a grand event that all Cloud River tier cultivators could participate in. At that time, there would be many capable cultivators and powerful cultivators. If one wanted to obtain first place in such a grand event, they would definitely have to risk their lives. 7017K. Chapter 761. Thinking about the hunting ground, the number 1 on the hunting list. As a reward, there were a total of 9 spiritual lots, plus 1 grade A spirit spring. The Cloud River battle for hegemony was such a grand event. It was reasonable for the hunting ground to have twice as many rewards. Moreover, Lu Ye's harvest in the dragon soaring realm. Actually, it could not be used as a standard for comparison. Under normal circumstances, a day later, a Cloud River cultivator recovered. Even
Based
after
on the
calculation,
secret
there was
realm,
about enough
the
time
greatest
for him to
possibility
spy
was
on
that
it
he would
once.
only
He
obtain
immediately
less than 3
immersed his
golden
mind again
spiritual
and
lots.
spied on the
In
origin.
comparison,
Inside,
the prize
he
of the
searched
Cloud
for the bright
River battle
starlight.
for hegemony
Time
was
passed in a
amazing
flash,
enough,
and 3
this
days
kind
had
of
passed.
grand event that
Lu
only
Yi,
happened
who was
once every
recovering
5
from his
years,
inspection,
basically
faintly
felt every Cloud
suddenly
River
he sensed
cultivator
something.
had the chance to
For no
participate.
reason, he understood
This
one
time,
thing. Some
one
cultivators could
the
even
Cloud
participate.
River battle had begun.
Twice. He got
As
up
early
and
as
walked out
2
of the
months
room.
ago,
The
he saw
heavenly
Li Ba,
secret had revealed
Immortal
itself.
Feng Yuechan,
Now,
and
the
even
registration
Huatzi
for the
giant
Cloud
armor
River
pushed at the
battle
same
for
time.
hegemony had
The
begun.
scene at the door.
Now,
The
few
few
of them
only
looked
a
at
few
each other
days
and
left
headed
before
in
it
the
would
same
end.
direction.
If he missed
They
the
walked in the
registration
direction
time,
of the
then
divine
no matter
pillar.
what he did,
A moment
no
later,
matter what
everyone
strength
gathered
he had,
around the divine
he was not
pillar.
qualified to participate.
At this moment,
he could only
there was a
wait for the
muffled
next time.
thud. 2 months ago,
that sound was deafening.
Lu Yi
At
silently
this moment,
calculated.
the clouds above
At
the
that
entire
time, he had
cloud
just
river
entered the knot
battlefield
long
instantly
after entering the
disappeared.
dragon-soaring
It
realm.
dissipated into
He should
thin
be
air.
at the Tyrant Blade Mountain. He was cultivating the Tyrant Blade
Chapter
technique on the
762.
small island in the middle of the lake. After he returned from the dragon-soaring realm's
secret
continued
realm,
to rise
he
and
stayed
fall,
in the
as
heavenly
if an
secret
invisible
business
giant
alliance
was
for
beating
another
heavy
month.
war drums above
During
the
his
nine
cultivation,
heavens. Although
as the
Hua
drums
Ci
beat,
knew about
Lu
the
Yi
cloud
felt the
river
blood
battle
in his
for
chest
hegemony.
churning.
He
He
did
looked
not
to the
mention
side,
it, for fear
whether it
of
was Li
disturbing
Baxi,
him.
Feng
So it was
Yuechun,
only today
giant
that he
armor,
knew about
or
the
even
cloud
Hua
river
Ci,
battle. The
there was
medical
such a thing
cultivator,
as a
their
hegemony.
auras were fluctuating
Fortunately,
and their
there
fighting
was still
spirit
a
was
few
high.
days left.
Don't panic.
He had missed it.
It seems that
And I
before
heard that you
every
can win
cloud
the
river battle, there is
for
such a
hegemony.
phenomenon. Those who
This
get
is
into
the
the top
operation
10
of
will
the
not
heavens
only
to
get
boost
the golden
morale.
spiritual
It
luck,
is used to
but
stimulate
also get
fighting
the favor
spirit.
of the heavenly
Li
secret.
Baxian's voice
Hua
sounded.
Ci said. Only then
Then
did
he
Lu Yi
added,
relax his
"The
mind.
favor of the
Just
heavenly
now,
secret
he was
was
still
invisible
thinking that
and
something had
formless.
happened.
The
The
biggest
drums
benefit
sounded
was that it
18
allowed the
times.
cultivators'
Search
morale
read
to
after that.
increase.
The sound
It
of
was
3
always
long horns
successful.
rang out
Lu
leisurely.
Yi had also been
After the
blessed
sound
by
of
the
the
heavenly
bugle horn,
secret many
there
times.
seemed to be an army
Thinking
of
about it
thousands of
carefully,
men and horses
was there
coming
really
through
anything?
the air.
He could
The
not
aura
explain
of
it
iron
clearly.
and blood. After all,
It
luck was
bathed the
this.
entire
This
cloud
thing
river
itself could
battlefield
not
in
be
a somber
seen or
atmosphere.
touched. Among
Sometimes
them,
his luck was
Lu Yi's
good,
expression
but
was strange.
sometimes
He didn't
his luck
understand
wasn't
why
that
the
good.
heavens of the
But
nine
for
regions
ordinary
would do such a thing.
cultivators,
The favor
after
of the
a while,
heavenly
the
secret.
horn sound
Gu was
slowly
undoubtedly
disappeared.
a great
Above the
temptation.
sky,
No
there
matter
seemed
what,
to be a
since
giant
we've
roaring.
met, we should participate. It's not a bad thing to do it once,
even if
not
Lu
to
Ye's
mention
mind
the
was
fate of
tough.
heaven. He was still
Does Gu have
excited
any
by
effect?
this set of flowers.
Those golden
His
Solots
fighting
prizes.
spirit flared up,
Bosley
and he
was
wished
not
he
just
could
for
find
show.
an evenly matched opponent right now. He wanted to have a big fight with his opponent to relieve the tension in his heart. Then, Lu Yi saw a layer of ripples on the pillar of heavens suddenly spread out. After that, it spread in all directions. As the ripples spread, first Li Baxian's figure suddenly disappeared, followed by giant armor, and then Hua Ci and Feng Yuechun disappeared almost at the same time. At the same time, the battlefield mark on the back of his hand was also slightly. As soon as it was hot, an inexplicable traction came, and his vision blurred. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a battle arena. In the arena. Before Lu Yi could familiarize himself with the scene in front of him, a roar sounded in his ears. There was a loud roar. Turning his head, he saw a stranger over there. A burly demon cultivator with bull horns was looking at him with red eyes. 2 substantial heat waves were spurting out of his nostrils. He held a spirit shield in one hand and an axe in the other, pointing at Lu Yi. "Lu Yi, you over there, brat, come and die." Lu Yi glanced over and knew that this guy was also affected by the heavens. Hua had been affected and was probably in the same state as him. It was the kind that wanted to find someone to fight. What else was there to say? Lu Yi took a step forward and rushed towards the bull-horned beast cultivator. The rear almost dragged the afterimage. "Good timing!" The demonic cultivator shouted and took heavy steps. Fa then walked towards Lu Yi. Facing such an opponent, Lu Yi was afraid that if he used too much strength, he would kill him before he could shout out the word, surrender. Moreover, he didn't know which camp his opponent belonged to, so he couldn't directly kill him. Lu Yi simply patted Hu Po on his shoulder. Hu Po understood and leapt down from Lu Yi's shoulder, roaring as he charged towards the 5th Order cultivator to provoke him. The other party was obviously a little confused, but when he saw Lu Yi sitting down cross-legged, his face immediately turned black. "Fellow Taoist, although your cultivation may be higher than mine, you don't have to look down on me like this, right?" Lu Yi's posture clearly indicated that he wanted Hu Po to fight with him. "Beat my pet first, then we'll talk." Lu Yi replied casually, then closed his eyes and began to meditate. There were still many gifts from the 100 Formation Tower in his mind that he hadn't digested yet, so this scattered time was just the right time to do this.